Hello, hello. Let's get that audio check done. I have my guest backstage right now. This is Unfiltered. What is it? Unfiltered podcast. I can't remember. I don't forgot it twice. But her name is Heidi Love. Good audio? Awesome. We are trying something. I believe she is live streaming from her own channel at the same time. You guys know I am tech. I am not with it. I have no idea how to do those type of things, but she does. So you can actually watch this video from her channel or mine. Sound is good. Oh, Unfiltered Rise. So I almost got her confused with Rise Above podcast. This is Unfiltered Rise. Good. Audio checks all the way. Let me introduce my guest today, Heidi Love of Unfiltered Rise podcast. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yeah, you can thank Big John. I think he's the one that set all this up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Big John.
Yeah, I seen him pop in a minute ago. He tries to peek in to see if my guests are here yet. Thinks I don't know. Backstage. Yeah, it's
Hi, everybody.
So I was going through your channel and I noticed, you spent a lot of time in the Mormon church.
Yes. Yes, I was born there.
You were born into it then. Okay. I get it.
Yeah. Yep. I here. Yep. Still in Utah.
So you have had a wide variety of guests on, but your subject matter is not just about the Mormon church. So you've pretty much moved on from all that. But I am curious. I mean, I have read the Book of Mormon. I have tried to find esoteric and more deeper meanings to like the books of Nephi, and I've gone in there and I found Phoenix phenomenon data, but it bothered me because whoever composed the Book of Mormon actually used the false chronology that was popular in the early 1800s. It's now been dismissed, but at that time it would have been the most innovative breakthrough information of the time. So it kind of followed the timelines of Godfrey Higgins and others who were really instrumental in the early 1800s. So I can see where it's a composition, but I'd like your take on, man, what happened to you? Why did you break away? What is going on with the Mormon church? Because you're not the first one. You're not the first one to whistleblow about Utah.
Right. I think important things to remember are, as you've stated, like the Book of Mormon and time frame, it depends on what version you read because they've changed it so much. There is more original versions from Joseph Smith himself that they didn't desecrate. I don't have a problem with people doing whatever they want to do with their religion or God or anything. I just don't like lying. And that is my main problem. Like I always say, if you want to be a magician, make some magic, but don't lie to people and harness their energy. That is unforgivable. So that's kind of my issue. And I walked away. I lost my family. I lost everyone. Like what I did is considered apostasy. And it is one of the reasons that will get you thrown into outer darkness, which is only reserved for apostates and murderers. And so this is like serious. And I did go almost the whole way. There's one step above that you have to be really special to get, which is the second anointing. But I did take out the temple rites. I did all of the things that I was supposed to. And I didn't know what a Mason was. And I was wearing Masonic symbolism on my chest every day for like over 2 decades. That's unfair, if you want to do anything you want to do, that's fine. But you have to start being honest with people. I actually think their numbers would go up if they were honest with people. I think they're ridiculous.
The Freemason and Scottish Rite, they lean more to esoteric Hebraicism and basically the Judaic craft. But Mormonism seems to it doesn't lean on the Jewish deal. Although the same connections are there, it kind of leans toward on like Western Christianity. And I know that it's been highly refined because like from the time of Brigham Young, there's a huge noticeable change in the Mormon textbooks, in the Norman books, because in the late 1800s, there was all kinds of problems, predictions that never came true. A lot of these things, I mean, when you have 155 years to edit out all the mistakes and refine your deal, you get in 2025, you get this highly polished version of Mormonism that is infallible. Its history is there's been no mistakes, everything was perfect and all that. But when you read the Mormon writings from 1910 to 1940, you see where they were arguing about, hey man, this didn't come true, this ain't true. Why? Who brought this into the Mormon faith? It's not a part of the original. Yeah, I've gone pretty deep on my own studies because I was just searching for the truth myself.
That's the key. That's kind of what happened to me. I just, and at this point I just believe, in God, and I don't go to a church. I don't subscribe to church. I just can't do that anymore. I'm not an atheist. I don't believe in that either. I just and people can believe what they want. No disrespect on that as well. But I do think truth is important. I think that's what really led me to expose things, because I have a very strong sense of justice, and I just felt like things were very unjust. We get lied to. I believe they're practicing a magical order of masonry, way older than the Scottish Rite, to be quite frank. And people want to always say, Scottish Rite. I'm like, you probably should look into practicing Martinism. That would be a little closer, although I think it goes clear back to Babylon, honestly. And that's fine. Whatever they want to do with their salvation is fine. But don't lead little grandmas next door, the sweetest people you've ever known in your life, okay? Because these are good people. The bulk of the church are good people. It's
Absolutely.
just easy. Yeah.
I say that a lot, Heidi. I tell people all the time, my issue isn't with Christians, it's with Christianity. It's Christians are basically good people. And what we have with the Mormon hierarchy and structuring is very similar to what we have with NASA. The bulk of the people who are employed with NASA actually believe that they're doing the things that the upper hierarchy are telling the world that they're doing. So people are doing their jobs, they're doing telemetry, they're doing all thousands of NASA jobs, and everybody believes that they're actually contributing to this higher order of sending things out in space and going to the moon and doing all these things. But at the top, they know that this is a massive tax. It's all disguised. NASA is a tax. It is designed to siphon wealth away from the American public under the guise of space exploration. And the Mormon church, only the people at the very top are really going to know just what you're getting into. Just like all these people talking about, man, I'm 32-degree Mason. There's guys with YouTube channels who brag about, I made it up to the 32nd degree. Then I decided I didn't want to go higher, or whatever their story is. Truth be told, if you're still a degreed Mason, you're not in the know. It's above the degrees where the decision making, where they really know what's going on. So with Mormonism, what cultural things are going on within the church that the rest of them, like Christian America, would frown upon? Like, oh no, this is absolutely not biblical.
Yes, there's a lot. And to your point, just to throw a little fun fact in there, NASA, Don Lind, a lot of very, very important people in NASA are Mormons. Don Lind was Mormon, and, there's a bunch of Mormons. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. It's a rabbit hole.
Yep. Philo Farnsworth, the inventor of the television, was a Mormon. Carrie Thornley was a Mormon. That's a fun one. And so when we talk about Mormons, right, we have to dissect this into a few things. We have the top elite people that I would like to say is Mormon Inc., right? And this is definitely frowned upon with, the Christian community. Not that they don't have their own issues as well as Catholics or anyone else. When we start bringing government and religion together, we make a little bit of a problem there, a big one actually, and money. Right. And we get these people that are doing things that are not sanctioned by their teachings, let alone by Christianity, first of all. Second of all, their theology aligns way closer with Catharism, like I said, Martinism, magical stuff, but they've squashed it way down. And so that's reserved now for the elites. Like, this has all been, like you said, whitewashed, literally. And they've taken out the theosophy that's involved in it. Like, there's a lot of very strange rabbit holes that, you know, come out of the Mormonism movement, including a branch of the Strangites that called themselves the Halcyon Illuminati. Like, this is no joke. Like, this is a full infiltration, appearing to be one thing, but they are not. And so that is huge. They don't believe in a Trinity. So Christians would definitely have a bulk with that. They believe three separate entities, the Father, and then, the Mother and the Holy Spirit. It's all very interesting. We've got Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and Mother. They don't even talk about the Mother. I definitely believe it aligns, just like, Tammuz and the whole thing. Like, but nobody knows that. See,
Good
this
point.
is
Very
sad.
good point. I listen. I have to interrupt because we have so many
Anytime.
listeners. We have so many listeners that are unaware of what you just said and how profound it is. You just mentioned Tammuz. You just connected the doctrine of Mormonism to the older Near Eastern faiths, where every religion in the Middle East, 2, 3, 4,000 years ago, all believed in a triune assembly of gods. It was a trinity of gods that ran everything. Anu, Ea, Enlil. I said, you just nailed it right there. That's what Mormonism is copying. It's copying the older Babylonian model of three
100%.
distinct deities that are running council over the earth.
100%. You're absolutely right. And all you have to do really is look at what they call their God. They call their God Elohim. Well, people are going to come at me for that. And they're, that's in the Bible too. It is. But you should do a little more research there, and it will lead you straight to this answer. Because if you put in to just plain old Google, not some crazy place, dark web, I don't know, but you just put in, who is Elohim's wife? Well, it'll tell you it's Astarte. And that gets you right back to where we just spoke, because that's just another name for this whole situation. Like you said, you named multiple names there. That's what they do. Yeah.
How interesting that Elohim very literally in Hebrew means gods. It's not, and it's, we have turned it into the singular in our translations, but in Hebrew, Elohim means gods in the plural.
Absolutely, it does. And when we say that, it's okay. Look, if you want to be a polytheistic religion, fine. But be honest. Quit telling people that, it's just, Jesus and God and what was, Christianity. Are they schizophrenic? Like, they'll pull this whole little thing. And I'm like, okay, but you're hiding a holy mother. You'll talk a little bit about her. You'll say she's too holy to name. And we know that there's a heavenly mother. They'll say this, but they don't put it in the Trinity, right? They've like removed that kind of in a way. But it's there, but it's not there, because then it leads you to everything, right? And so Joseph Smith was clearly practicing not folk magic. And I have a bunch of photos. I'm not sure if we want to just chat or do photos or both, but I can show you parchments. I mean, you seem like quite a bit, and I think you'd be able to dissect them in about a half a second. It's Solomonic magic, and they get away with saying, well, that's folk magic. No, that isn't. It's different. And when you look at that, was there aspects of folk magic in there? Sure, but not what he was doing. And he was, learning. He was a dumb farm boy. This is the narrative from New York. Okay, we're going to go with church narrative. He's a 14-year-old boy that didn't know how to read or write from New York. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, how come his paternal family are some of the most influential people in Salem, Massachusetts?
Right.
And how come his great-great-grandpa was involved in the Inquisition?
Yeah, it's a Spielberg. It's a Spielberg invention. Just like we have a fake history of how Spielberg became one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Yeah, he has this amazing story just made up, how he snuck into the studios and there was empty office buildings, and he set himself up as an office, and he used to sneak into all these movies as they were being made. And since there's so many hundreds of people, no one was really checking who's who. And he used to walk around in a suit and a briefcase and just give advice on how to better do shit. And all of a sudden, he became the talk of Hollywood, and everybody went to that guy Spielberg, and nobody questioned the fact that he had an office. It is a ridiculous story. But there are so many people, like you said, this is Rockefeller syndrome. When we have these individuals in media and actors and actresses who become super famous, and when you do a little background checking on them, you find, oh my God, they're all Rockefellers. What the hell? And they all have these made up histories as to how they started at grassroots.
Rockefeller comes into this, with, I mean, even they try to obfuscate, like, well, okay, we hear a lot about Joseph Smith, but what about the families, right? This is where I started pulling things apart. And I'm going to start a new podcast underneath my regular podcast just called Unfiltered History, because every time I pull something down, right? Like you said about Spielberg, it's this grand illusion, right? You pull it apart and you get to the facts, and you go to the facts of the time, like go to Salem's actual city, like entries all about this, witchcraft trials. And there's the name, and there's the dates, and there's the real information about these people. That's just one instance. You can do that with a lot on Mormonism, but they don't like that. And they expect you to be a lazy learner. These books here are nothing compared to what's sitting next to my bed. My husband's like, yeah, your books are overtaking our whole bedroom. I'm like, I get that, but I need them to like pull something apart. Like, here's another fun story. Who was the first principal of BYU at the time? Well, there's this guy, and I got this really old book from 1927, and his name is Carl Maeser, Maeser.
BYU is Brigham Young University, for those who don't know.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I should have said that. And so I'm like, okay, well, who's this guy? You start doing these little, who is this person and where did he come from? His name seems different. Like, what's happening here? Well, he came from Germany. What do they tell you with Hegel or anybody, like, take over education, right? Take over the children. This is what they're going to do, and this is what they've been doing. So Maeser gets brought into this, but who is he related to now? How about Peter Thiel? He's Peter Thiel's great uncle. So when we look at this and we see all of these different things that don't seem to correlate, like the lady that was the full progenitor and financer of Stanford, how come she was a spiritualist, but her name was Mormon? And it's so easy to find. So then, of course, I look it up. Yeah, there's Mormon history. It's everywhere. It's everywhere, but they disguise it.
I see that. There have been many people over the years that even accuse the Mormon Church of even more nefarious, dark practices of child trafficking, whole families coming up missing. Utah's a big place. It
has a lot of desert, There's
even rumors that the temple has a massive underground complex underneath it.
It does. That's not a rumor. Yeah, that's 100% fact. I do an episode on the tunnels, and we have photos there that are 100%. There's tunnels all the way. There's a complete grid system underneath Utah, and it goes all over the place. And there's photos of it.
It connects many military bases. Underneath the military bases are also military bases that are connected underground. Yeah, I've seen some of it too. My publisher, Booktree, Paul in San Diego, his collection of books is amazing, his catalog. And when I was in prison, I had read many of these books that were talking about, he has books about underground bases. It'll just blow people's minds how many millions of people are already under the United States. And this is where they work. This is where they live. They come up stateside for different times. There is even evidence that we have a massive secondary military that our military is subservient to, a whole nother order, a branch of the military that operates underground. And it's insane how little we really know about what's really going on. And yet it's been going on for a long time.
Oh, 100%. Like, when do we start making, these connections with the Mormons and presidents, with the Mormons and extremely famous Jewish settlers? When I say Jewish, they were mostly Ashkenazi, But, why is a dumb farm boy that doesn't know how to write English very well studying Hebrew with the Seixas family, Seixas? Look that one up, guys. That's a
Yeah.
whole rabbit hole. He's like the main Jewish guy that was over Thanksgiving, like he's in with the presidents. Like, why does the dumb farm boy know that guy? What happened there?
Well,
It's
it
because it's not
really
true.
begs the question: if we have Protestant Christianity with all its multiple denominations, all subservient to basically Jewish financiers, and this is what we've seen with Christianity across America. Christians don't see it, but those of us on the outside who came from that world, we see it clearly. So, and you find out Mormonism, and then you find out Jehovah Witnesses, the strong Jewish ties, and you see this, all the televangelists, all these big, huge televangelists. Hell, some of them are Jewish and hide it, like the guy we have, Joel Osteen in Houston, and they all go to Israel. They all do. It's this massive web, and then we have other interesting things that pop up into the field that, unless you really delved into them, you wouldn't even realize. Oh my God, this is 100% taken straight out of rabbinical texts and repackaged. I'm talking about Archaix, the massive Bible type book called Archaix. When you get through the first 250 pages, it paints a really interesting scenario of a holographic universe in archons and all these things that are going on in Earth, and it gives explanations. And then only after you've accepted that, it drops you straight into the rabbinical material. Halfway through, it's all Jewish. It begs the question: if there's going to be that much energy in putting out false trails, then that means there's something here to be discovered that is real.
This is something that we have to understand, that this was, a plot. America wasn't what people thought. I just barely did an interview, and he mentions this specifically, how, the Mayflower story, that's a complete Rosicrucian thing. The people that were coming over on the first boat, are, like most of them, Rosicrucians, first families. And when we talk about these people, it's not one denomination or anything. I did give the one, example, but this is an example to show the infiltration of religion and government and all of these very important financiers, like you've said. And it goes ultimately back to the crown. And I can prove that. And the Stuarts, and I'm sure because with your
I know.
intro, look,
Yeah, they're not
all
royal
about the
blood.
Stuarts,
Yeah, they're
right?
not royal blood at all.
But they're a big deal,
Yeah.
right? They're a huge big deal. Well, why is my great grandparents directly to the line of Stuart, directly to Medici's and Antoinette and all these people? And I'm like, wait a minute, my family was just poor farm people from Utah. Why? What is this about? How does this happen?
The Stuart line is the modern line. The queen just died. She was a Stuart, right?
Yep.
So in
And
the War of the Roses, the Stuarts took over from what family? What family was that?
so yeah, they had the big fight, the War of the Roses between, I know it was the
Because
Stuart
I
line
believe
and
what I had read was Oliver Cromwell was basically the one that modified Parliament, and modified the English crown. His conspiracies was what basically allowed for. I mean, there's no other way to color it. It's basically the Jewish takeover of the crown, and from they literally took over Parliament. Rothschild was allowed into British Parliament. He's the first person ever. He was Jewish, and he was the first person ever allowed into Parliament who did not have to swear on a Bible. He refused to swear on. He refused to swear on a Bible, and they voted him into Parliament anyway. But
well,
those were
and
Rothschild.
people are talking about the Rothschilds. Yes, they're a German line. Yes, it's a Bauer line. Yes, all of that. But the problem is it's all mixed in with this falsity. And during this time, we have these people that are trying to escape, because of this war that you're talking about. Like that, this was not going to be copacetic. They were kind of running, right? And when we talk about all of this, like it seems to be that the infiltration of a great new world and all of this stuff, that Francis Bacon talks about was implemented. Like, honestly, if you go backward to the most old conspiracies, like you're talking about, right, it gets very strange. And when we look at it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you start dissecting it just like that, right? Like, why are all the presidents related? Why, people will say, well, everybody's related. Are they really? But, the point is no, not everybody should be related just because of the generations that came here. Like that's a little much. That's what people want to throw it under. But yet I find these connections time and time again, like the Rockefellers, Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormon Church, seventh cousin, 2 times removed to Nelson Rockefeller. We've got also my more fun one is he's the 5th cousin of, William Huntington Russell, who starts Skull and Bones. And then we get our own Skull and Bones out here in Utah that is sanctioned. That is not a copycat. That is sanctioned from the people that were in Skull and Bones that came here, that were family members to the Mormons, came here and set up this branch. And there's never been another one since or before. So it makes you question, like, we're looking at this and we know that there's these secret combinations, right? We talk about this all the time and different things in these clubs. There's that. I mean, you could never name them all, tens of thousands.
We can name a few of them: Lions Club, the Elk Lodge, the Moose Lodge, the Independent Order of Foresters. These are all the ones that replaced the older archery guilds. But the archery guilds were done away with in the Templar times because they were anti-Christian. And
right.
they were the pagan guilds throughout Europe, and they were done away with as Christianity took over. So you really paint an interesting scenario here. So the Mormon temple is at the center of Mormon culture. They literally have their own state, and yet they have spread their tendrils through all these other states. But it seems to be nothing but the finger on a fist of a larger network. And it's literally an act of genius. We call it the Mormon Temple, but apparently we call it the Mormon Temple, but apparently it's something else. It's a headquarters for something else.
I think they're, what do certain sects, like that we've named some of, promise that they'll go do? They'll build temples, and they'll tell you their temple is the recreation for the King of Solomon. They don't hide this at all.
Right.
They have a big, basin.
There's your common denominator with Freemasonry right there, because Hiram Abiff, Hiram Abiff and Solomon's Temple is the center of focus to the degrees.
Yeah, I think I should show you a couple pictures, because I think sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I'm going to open it really quick. But I just think that the thing is people have to understand this is all of them. When we talk about this stuff, everybody wants to pigeonhole it. And the problem is like you just said, and that's perfectly said, this all comes from, the orders they destroy, quote unquote, destroy, right? But they don't. They continue to live on. Even the Illuminati just stops. But what happened to Weishaupt? He didn't just stop and go away. No, he lives out his life and things go on.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I'm just
1776, no. Weishaupt was exposed by the Bavarian police. They found all his secret communiques to other people. But you know what? Shoot, the rest of Europe covered that shit up, and Bavaria was kind of left stranded out there.
Absolutely. Right. And isn't that a curious year, right? Isn't that the most curious year for that? But we have to understand that this stuff doesn't just go away. That's silly. It's actually funny to me, and it's going to go into a bunch of windows. So let me fix this real quick first. Okay. Whenever you're ready, tell me if you can see that on the screen.
Oh, you should see it now.
Okay. So I can't see. I just can only see my presentation, but just interrupt me anytime. But I want to show this because this is the Smith family parchments that the church has tried to obfuscate for clearly obvious reasons. If you know anything about magic or the keys of Solomon.
I'm looking at, I have books on Enochian seals. I'm looking at 2 Enochian seals right now.
Absolutely, you are. And we also are going to get into something that Joseph Smith had on his body at the time he died. But we want to show that this is clearly, like, we have Raphael in the center, and we know one thing about John D tells us for sure. All these things that everybody talks to, Crowley, Joseph Smith, Muhammad, the Babylonian workings. Okay, name them all. Like, it doesn't matter. This is what happens. They get into some weird stuff. They do some rituals. An angel usually shows up. Crowley didn't have to have an angel because he didn't care. A being, Awas, showed up. And then it tells them, write a book. And here's what you're going to do and write. And then some kind of something strange comes in, like John Dee, the wife swapping, and he gets to raise, Edward Kelly's kid. And, with Mormons, it's polygamy. With Muhammad, it's polygamy. There's questionable 8-year-olds there. I'm not going to get into that whole thing. That's a mess. Whatever happened there. People get offended, but it's not my history. Also, Babylonian workings. We've got, creepy stuff out in the desert. And, we've got a lot of things happening, but these all branch into what? Religion. Every single last one of them. Even Crowley, though people don't recognize that are Christian, they don't understand that is what happened, So when we're talking about all of these things and talking to entities, which I believe are just, multidimensional, much like Steiner talks about, right? We have to understand that these are lower entities. And when you have this seal open here, this means you have a working relationship with this entity, right? Are you still there? Sorry.
Oh yeah. I'm just.
You're good. I just can't see. You're good.
I'm processing
just once in a while. Once in a while, I'll check in.
Okay.
And so these things come. These are the seals. Okay, that was on that previous paperwork, and they'll say this to you. They'll say, that's for his protection because people are trying to come against him and do spells against him, right? But that's not what it says. So it says, whoso beareth this sign about him, let him fear no one but God. And the next one down, whoso beareth this about him, all spirits shall do him homage. But the part that they left out in that piece is it actually says those who invoke. Okay. So when we're talking about invoking spirits, we're talking about something completely different now. We're not talking about the same thing anymore. We have to understand that they're making the spirits come. They're not just popping out of nowhere. Like, that's silly, and that's not the only thing that Joseph Smith had that was a little hokey. Okay. He had the Jupiter talisman that he died with in his pocket. And it was his most, according to his wife, most intimate possession, according to her. Okay. And this talisman led me to the Keys of Solomon. And it led me there early. I also completely focused on Enochian at first, which is a big part of this. And then we get into the Keys of Solomon. Because
I have the Keys of Solomon book too.
Right. Exactly. See, and you can see it. Like, I mean, this isn't, I've been accused that I copied somebody because I read this. Like, anybody can read this. That's so silly. Here it is for everybody to read. Go find a book or look it up. But this even says right here, this defendeth and protecteth those who invoke and cause the spirits to come. So we also know that the Book of Mormon story is that Joseph Smith would go out every year on the same date. And this date is curious. It's on the fall equinox. Well, if you know anything about Martinism, 2 times a year, you can communicate with angels. And these are practicing Martinists. Not all of the Martinists are the same. They're split apart as well. So I'm not trying to just be mean to them. But if you look into, Cagliostro and different things, you'll see like how this changed and evolved from Saint Martin, who had a different opinion on it. But we won't go there today because it's a lot. But I'm just saying he did this ritual every year at the same time. It's a quarter moon ritual. Okay. And it's a mix of, Solomonic magic, Wiccan, folk magic, witchcraft. And like I've said, I don't care what he did. It's not my issue anymore for me, but I do think it's really important that people understand it. So before they jump into the waters of baptism of this church, that they understand what they're getting into. Because you might get more than you can chew. Because John Dee even said, like, he was super pious. He dedicated half his life to this. And he said, they lie. They're not good. So what do we do with that? It gets you know,
Yeah, so you can
confusing.
call them what they are. I mean, the closest approximation that we have to transdimensional intelligences is demons. I mean, I mean,
Absolutely. Yes.
and
Because they're
and
lower.
the belief in demons antedates Christianity. I mean, a lot of people like to equate it. Well, that's just very Christian, but it's not. I mean, the belief in demons is transcultural. It's all over the world. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It's
No.
in former times there were believed to be the disembodied spirits of a race that pre-existed humans that were wiped out in a cataclysm, and they still remained here in different ways, and only by the activity of humans, especially observation, could they even manifest in our world. They were called jinn. But yeah,
Yep.
it's
Or the
there's all kind of,
Nephilim too,
yeah,
right?
yep,
Like you get, I mean, and this is what the church knows. This is why they, when you look at this stuff, I'm showing you, does it look Christian to you? Like we're talking about, ceremonial daggers. We're talking about, all these different, at best, Christian mysticism, but I think it goes further than that. Honestly, like we can look at this, right?
right.
And I mean, if people don't want to know, most of the time I run into people that are like, she's just lying. And I'm like, look, these are just books and I can't argue with information. Information is just information. But when it comes from Sibley's Book of Witchcraft and the Magus and different things, it gets a little wild,
So the
these.
Magus was written by Francis Barrett and published in 1801. It's huge, volume 1 and volume 2. This is what she's referring to. I have these in my library too. If you want to get, it's called the Magus, a complete philosophy of magic and talismans and artifacts, and it's an awesome book published in 1800 and 1801. But the Magus is something you're going to want to get into. But it goes into all these ancient sigils, talismans, symbols, traces their origin. Is pretty good.
Yes. And forever when I was young, I was told that Joseph Smith, when he finally did get the plates after being punched in the face by a toad or something like a toad, isn't that fun? If you know anything about magic at all, you kind of know, if you know, right? The toad is, one of the witch's familiars. They changed this story later. It became a salamander. And then that person was discounted, called a forger, arrested. And I think it was planned because it's a Knights Templar. It's way better to be a salamander than, a toad of witchcraft. And then the guy tried to speak once. He was found down in his cell, supposedly trying to unalive himself and was paralyzed on his right side because he laid on it for over 13 hours in a max security. Okay, cool. Cool story. No. That was a hit for sure. Like you don't just leave the guy there, even if he did that to himself. 13
Yeah,
hours? That
yeah,
doesn't happen in max.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in prison. It's widely known when they suicided people. Dudes didn't kill
Yep.
themselves. But
Yep.
I want to comment on the golden tablets of Joseph and the frog, and I want to explain why they merged those symbols. So the traditions of the golden tablets, they go back to about the 4th century BC, where it was alleged in Egyptian Coptic writings, and I've cited these heavily in my own books, that golden tablets were found that contained the secrets of a former world, and that former world secrets were the actual origin and reason the Great Pyramids were built. And this information was put on golden tablets, and there's a lot of chronological information. In my book, Lost Scriptures of Giza, I cite these tablets and what they were translated to say according to the Egyptian Copts, who read them for a Greek king. And the Greek king was fascinated by this, and he had them explain their history, and they told him a bunch of chronological facts that are verifiable. It's very interesting. But the golden tablets they're symbolic of knowledge of a pre-existing world that has nothing to do with our own world. The frog is very interesting because even in the book of Revelation, these evil spirits pop up from the ground, and the Revelation says they're like frogs that come up from the ground. And the frog in older traditions was a creature of two worlds, because originally as a tadpole it lived in a totally different world in the deep, the origin of spirits and demons and all that. But once it manifested into our world as something ugly and something that can cause hallucinogenic effects and all that, licking the frog or whatever. By the time it appeared in our world, it was ugly, but it came from another world, like spirit tadpoles in water and stuff. So it's the bridging of two concepts. The frogs are supposed to be the evil spirits that are carryovers from the world that the golden tablets are talking about.
Absolutely. And he had a magical rock that he transcribed all of this from. They hid that from us forever when he did get the plates, and they want no one to know the story you just told. Like this, like I said, this all goes back to very ancient times, and they have a pre-existing life. Mormons preach that we all lived in a pre-existence and we chose our life. We chose our parents. We chose our problems. We chose everything, that we're all spirit children of Elohim who has many goddess wives. And, we're going to go to Kolob as gods someday and have our own Kolob. They took that all away, I mean, can't bring that up anymore. So, but it's part of their theology. And you just have to understand that, like, there are very different aspirations from Brigham to Joseph. Joseph was very into magic. He was a magician. Crowley himself speaks about him in the Moonchild book. He references him in the notes at the bottom. He specifically says he is talking about Joseph Smith. And he oftentimes has been, tipped his hat basically to Joseph because he was a magician. And anybody that is into the things that, like, that I've studied, we can see what's happening here. But at some point, Brigham, I believe he had a lot to do with Joseph's demise. That isn't the story, right? That's not the story, but I really, truly believe that. And when we look at this, we have to say, okay, then Brigham Young is running away, right? He's coming to Utah, which is not part of America at the time. He wants to have an independent state, the state of Deseret. All right. And the beehive.
Did you say Deseret?
I did.
Spell that for me.
Deseret.
That's the word that's the word used in the book of Enoch to describe a desolate area where demons come from.
Yep. And that's where he said this is the place. And we were the state of Deseret. We were the beehive, which also should be we're still the beehive state. Very showing, telling. And I believe, Brigham Young was taking over this religion because it was a setup. And here's the thing. I believe Joseph. I believe he saw what he saw. I believe that he conjured it here. I believe that he was a magician, just the same as the others I've mentioned. I think magic is real, or it would have died a long time ago. The cult of the Magi explains a whole lot. And if you look backwards, right, or the Green Brotherhood, right, like all these things, we can look into hundreds of different cults or brotherhoods, and it will show you, like you said, a lot of hidden knowledge. This is why they keep it hidden. This isn't for the uninitiated. And I think that Joseph was riding the line of exposing way too much. Brigham was running away to do polygamy and wanted to be left alone. But then he does a curious thing. He wants to speak to somebody, i.e. the president, about completing the railroad out here. Isn't that funny? Like, I thought you were trying to hide. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Golden Spike, where the railroad was finished, is here in Utah. Wow. Four Corners, which is very crazy place. And
so they started on the West Coast and the East Coast, and they met in Utah.
Yep, wow. They did. And that was, widely sought over by the people that formed Stanford, that were from Mormon lineage. It just gets very strange if that's really what is happening, and you're all different religions, spiritualists and Mormons and all these different branches of things. Why do you all seem to have the same names, and why are you all intermarried? I mean, it's kind of strange.
You mentioned basically earlier in this presentation, you had mentioned the Medicis, and they are the central hub of the European monarchies. Of almost every conspiracy can be traced to the House of Medici. They had their hands in everything.
And
So
why are a bunch of poor farmers in Utah related to them? That makes no sense. And I'm not just talking about like I'm talking about really like in-depth records that people have done. I didn't make this up. I didn't want that. And even my DNA test, because I was a normie before 2020, it all correlates. So it's not just baloney, I'll tell
yeah.
you. And they were hiding people in places on purpose. They were trying to make a super race just like somebody else we know. And they had the same rules too. Not one drop of blood before 1978 could be from the black race, no one else. No, this isn't about what people think. This is specific to one race. And why? Because if you look at the Great White Brotherhood, right? It doesn't mean your skin is just white. And they were intermarrying with Native Americans on purpose, especially the Micmac, which I am some percentage of Micmac up in Canada. This
Yeah.
branched out everywhere. Okay. They were actually taking people and making children that were specific for harnessing the best energies, basically their magical properties.
So
Like
are the
that's
Mi'kmaq related in any way to the Mandan?
that I'm not sure. I know they also go by Mi'kmaq. They're the Canadian Aboriginal tribes. And so, they're up by where they say the Templars first landed, which I believe, Lanzo Meadows. It's a very interesting story. And all of
That
the
would have been
children
what the 1320s, 13.
way
Yeah,
before Columbus. Yeah.
yeah, it would have been the
Uh,
1320s because we also have a very curious in the Battle of Bannockburn, 1314 AD. Robert was defending himself against the invading English. They were having a lot of problems between Scotland and England, but suddenly a cavalry for which Robert did not have came to the rescue. And there's been some people who said the story's BS. Other people say was the only reason Robert was able to fend off the English was because this mystery cavalry. And then shortly after that, we had in Scotland, we had the Scottish Rite appear, which people believe that because it appeared at the same time as the Jolly Roger, all these Templar fleets were now outlawed. So they started flying a black flag with a skull and bones, and they became what we know of as the pirates. But some of them helped Robert the Bruce in that battle, and I don't know, man. There's a lot of naysayers, and then there's a lot of people who provide pretty good evidence of all that. So if they went to the reason I'm telling you this is because if the Templar fleets escaping Europe did make it to America, then it adds more credence to the fact that some of those ships did make it to Scotland because it's a much shorter route.
and where does Joseph Smith's lineage himself come from? This is all church actual DNA, okay, that they've had genealogists go through, collect all the DNA from his posterity, and actually figure it out. It comes from the Nile of the Nine. And if you know anything about that, that goes to the Tuatha De Danann, and it goes to some of these Scottish, people. And also, you have to wonder about the Egyptian myths of Skota, right? So we have to look at this with very open eyes because I will tell you the Mormons have, something called one royal line, and they trace themselves back to the house of David, literally, not
Yeah.
not theoretically, okay? And they have on this line a star, the Star of David, that says with these ones they will have the divine right to rule, okay? That scripture on there from this line, kings will rule. And so we have to understand the parts you're not supposed to understand to see how scary this is, because I'm telling you things that most people would never know about the Mormon church. Not the Mormons, that's for sure. They wouldn't know this, unless they're top elites. And what's the best cover ever to go and figure out all the mysteries in mystery schools? Well, how about a 2-year mission for every boy that turns 18? How about that? This is inside the temple. I did this. Baptisms for the dead people that are actually deceased, that you become proxy for, literally take on that person's name.
Oh, you play
And
host.
yes. And what
Wow.
attaches to you at that time? You do this as a pubescent kid, right around 12, 13. They're children. that do this most of the time. You can do up to 8 at a time in multiple sessions. The rules may have changed since I've been there. I've been out quite a little while now. So we have to look at what they are doing. They marry you for time and all eternity. Okay. And they also have you take on a new name in the temple, which all
Oh
of
man,
this
listen,
should
this is
sound
yeah,
very familiar.
this is all invocation right. So check this out.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. I don't know if you've gone down this rabbit hole, but uh yeah, what you just described is a very cleverly masked, basically tethering a disembodied spirit to you for
Yep.
your whole life in a ritual that's specifically designed that way. But so, do you have any data on how do I say this? Me, I normally don't give a damn
Don't
about
be
offending.
delicate.
I normally don't
be
give a damn about offending people, but it's is there any data for a high proportionality of Mormon cases of like split personality
violence.
disorder?
Yeah. So we are one of the top states. I'm a mental health nurse now. That's what I do now. I try to help people and the best I can for through addiction. And I will tell you, we have a high level of SI. I'm not going to say that because it'll get us in trouble. Where you're unaliving yourself, divorce, depression, pharmaceuticals, and it's really convenient for the church because they own most of the
Psychologically
pharmacy.
debilitating states it's noticeable that in Utah they're higher than elsewhere.
Well, and Israel Keys, he was a Mormon. He was raised Mormon. Ted Bundy, he was raised Mormon. There's a bunch of them. I mean,
Wow.
like this gets wild. The Green River Killer, they don't want to confirm that he's a Mormon, but he was raised in Utah and his brother's a Mormon, so that's a fun one.
Well, I would like to, I don't know if you've gone down this rabbit hole, so I'm going somewhere with this. Because this is the absolute model of ancient Babylonian invocation rites. So I'm going to say that if you can't see a noticeable difference in percentages with Mormons with split personality disorder, all that, then that means this type of invocation may be something else. And I would like to know the numbers on how many males coming out of Mormonism are actually populating our force recon units, our Delta units, our SEAL units, all the branches of the special forces, Space Force. How many? Is it disproportionate?
Yep.
Do Mormon males have the highest security clearances in America?
I dare say they do, and they branch into something called the Mormon Mafia, which people can scoff at. But I'm going to finish just a couple things on here, and I'm going to go into that because that one is wild. But I just want to show this symbolism because you brought up the invocations, right? And I have gone down this road, and I remember when I felt very moved to go down this road. Okay. And my mom completely lost her mind. She was like, "You can't study this crazy stuff. This is bad." And I'm like, I do realize that I'm not going to practice this. I'm not becoming a practitioner or anything, Mom. But like, I'm not getting the answers where I'm looking. And I'm pretty sure they're on this other side. And as I started that study, this was something put on my heart and it wasn't something I really wanted to do. I never thought I would ever be a podcaster. I'm a nurse. I'm a mom. I'm a grandma, I've got 6 kids. I'm busy and I was fine with my life the way it was, but this was put on my heart, honestly. And so that's all I'm trying to do is expose something that I do feel is nefarious. And if people, don't want to hear it, that's okay. But if you do, I hope this helps you because it really helped me, when you start breaking things off of you, your life changes. And mine happened because I almost died, quite a few times, but I had cancer, I almost died. That's kind of what led me on my way out of the church. And, I knew when I went into the temple to do the rites, something was wrong. So this is on the outside of the temple.
Oh, wait a minute. We're
On the
still sharing? Hold on. Let me go back.
sorry.
All right.
Yes, a
I got
Nauvoo
it.
temple. And I think this is really important because of something you brought up. So if you look at the pentagram in this photo, it's upside down. Okay. So, and then the other pentacle is in the circle. Okay, which is a binding. All right, for people that don't know with magic, and it's very concerning to me that possibly they are invoking things into people without their knowledge, all right, and sealing it there. And their buildings tell on them so badly, but so does the ceremonies that they participate in. So this is what happens inside the Mormon temples. This is something I did. They did take out the slitting of the throat, okay, where it's ceremonial, like where you just say you'll slit your throat before you tell, like I'm doing right now, okay, and cut your guts out. And it's all the same for Masons and everybody. It's the same thing. It's the same oath. They took that one out because people got upset. But they do the true order of prayer. Yes, Satan shows up there. He is Jesus's brother in the Mormon Church, just so people know. And this is something that you wear. These are your temple clothes. No longer do the women veil their faces, but if you understand something about the offerings and old magic and veiled faces and different, it's very, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, well,
And
the
so
apron is a nod to the
it's
craft.
green. Yes. And it's green. It's supposed to be green. This is just dark. It's got fig leaves on it. And so, this is also very interesting. This purposeful hand movement here, and then you go up and down 3 times. It's very Typhonian. It's chaos magic, look, like, I mean, it didn't really take me all that much studying to find this surface level stuff. The whole background of it, where it's, the mysteries and all that gets harder. But it
So
was something that
there's a deep connection between Typhon and human sacrifice.
Yep. Yep. And I truly, so they used to say, now they say, "Oh God, hear the words of my mouth." But they used to say, differently, and they would say, Pele-El. Okay. And when you get your new name, and then the very last thing you do after you go through a whole bunch of stuff, I'm skipping a lot, but if you guys go to episode 172, it'll show everything, all of the symbolism, everything you do in there. But you are doing things that you have no idea what you're doing when you practice this ancient magic. And I will tell you, if magic didn't work, it would have died off long ago. It does. And you have to be very, very careful with yourself. They also use mirrors, making like a portal look, and you'll see it turns green at the end, which is it's all very significant. We get into Venus and all the things, but I know whichever rabbit hole we want to go down is fine. But this is what you see when you look in the mirror, okay, as you're being sealed for time and all eternity to your husband over this altar right here, okay? And you kneel. And it is the closest to a Hebrew type ceremony for marriage back in the old days. And they are proud to tell you that. Like, they're happy about it. But mirror magic is something. Like, all of this stuff it's a lot. And, the health in the bones and marrow and all this stuff, there's this very witchcraft phrase, which is the last thing you say, the last piece of knowledge before you go through the fake veil. Do you know what I'm talking about? That magical phrase.
Wow, that's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. The pentagram that you showed on the Mormon temple. So I'm gonna dot connect here a little bit where your research kind of crosses over into mine. So the Solomon Temple isn't even about the Solomon Temple. It is a representation of the actual antediluvian temple that we know of as the Great Pyramid of Egypt. The Great Pyramid of Egypt it has 5 terminations. It has four at its foundational cornerstones, and then there's a 5th place at the top where a fifth cornerstone has yet to be placed. It would be the largest stone of the entire structure, and the entire structure is designed to hold it up, but it hasn't been placed yet. But it's the fifth termination. So this is in three-dimensional geometry, 4 at the base and 1 at the top. The pentagram is a representation of three-dimensional geometry of the number 5, but it's only representative in 2 dimensions. Those 5 points made equidistant form a pentagram. That pentagram is 10 angles of 108 degrees. So there are many different ancient references to a gate being a gigantic structure, or a gate located in Egypt. In both Egyptian and in Greek traditions, we have when Typhon appears in the sky, the gods of Greece flee to Egypt. We have in the book of Tophet, which is with the collection Bel and the Dragon and the Apocrypha, we have a reference to a demon. It's either Asmodeus or 7 demons that were with Asmodeus fled to Egypt rather than being banished out of their human hosts. So Egypt, in the Necronomicon, we have references, and I understand much of it is fiction, but it's fiction grafted into fact because it has whole tracts of ancient Babylonian cuneiform texts like the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis, the Era Epos. They've all been detected in the Necronomicon. And in there we have, in the Magan text, we have a reference to the gate of Yaxakak, where the ancient ones go between worlds, but they can only do it at certain times. And that mankind is the key to activating the gate of Yaxakak. So these references to Solomon's temple and all that isn't a temple that was actually in Egypt. It is actually the Great Pyramid as a portal between worlds by which these spirits can move back and forth.
Which I want to bring this to your attention because I think you're absolutely right. And this is the side of a mountain that they blew out, and no one can go in here. It's very secret, and they have armed guards with semi-automatic weapons here for a genealogy center. Okay. So this is what their story is. Here's this gigantic mountain with razor wire and bars on the windows and armed guards. I dare say this is your space that you're speaking of, one of many.
Yeah.
And this is considered their genealogical center. So this is one little tiny area of their genealogy where they got from the Nazis and from the CIA, which I have proof of. And I'll go into that as well if you'd like. But nobody ever is allowed to go in there. These pictures are only there because they had to put out something. People were asking a lot of questions. This is from when it was very first started, when they were blowing holes in the side of the mountain. Yeah. So I think you're 100% right. And this goes into the most strangest places. And I'm going to show you. It's just bizarro world unless you understand everything. I will tell you their priesthood is called the Melchizedek priesthood, which should sound very familiar to you. I'm sure you caught that one. And their garments, I do want to show those very, very quickly. Okay, so here's what the undergarments look like for Mormons, their magic underwear. But the symbolism here is the compass and the square. Then the ruler is sideways over the umbilicus. And it's all funny enough right over an opening in your body. Nipples have openings. A belly button has an opening. Okay. And people can scoff at that all they want. But if you know, you know, and you are supposed to wear this the closest to your body, never take them off. You have tons of these, pairs of these. It's like your underwear. And you only take them off to go swimming or go to the gym or make more Mormons because they like you to have a lot of kids. But you got to put them right back on afterwards. So they want this even on before your bra. Like this is supposed to be closest to you. And, when you're talking about channeling and entities and all of this stuff, like we really do have to look at the whole thing, right? It's got to be in context to what you said, but how many people know that history? Like hardly any, And
Right.
so it's easy to lead people astray. And unfortunately, they've made it so mainstream and normal, right? But meanwhile, the prophet of the church, this was one of the prophets, he's dead now, Thomas S. Monson and Baby Bush. Well, what are they doing? That's not Masonic, by the way. That's a secret society handshake. So,
Yeah.
We've got the cousin of Joseph through the Mac line. Funny enough, they never bring that up. They also never bring up that his grandma on his mother's side was do you know who Deacon Gates is?
No, don't.
Daniel Deacon Gates. So he was a big deal. He was from the Gates family. In fact, they call him the Deacon line because so many deacons came from them. But one of those people was Bill Gates. And Bill Gates and the Mormons have kind of a funny connection, but he is related to Joseph Smith. Though if you try and Google it, it will not give you that information. You have to go up the mother's line to find it. And her name is Lucy.
You got to do the same thing with a lot of the people I study. Yeah, you have to go. They will tell you nothing, but then when you go research who their mother is, sometimes Wikipedia will slip up and tell you who their mother's dad or mom was, and then you got it. You know exactly.
Yes. Yep. So, you got to go to a brother or somebody. And this is the Melchizedek sign. Okay. This is all over their temples. This is for their priesthood sign. Okay. I'm sorry, but when your signature sign is a mammon sigil, you should probably be concerned about what their intentions are. Yes, they left out this piece in the center, but let's all be realistic. This can represent something. It does.
Yeah.
And I just can't make it up. Like, it's right there. This is directly from the Keys of Solomon.
So I'm going to tell you my limited knowledge on Melchizedek. So first of all, it broken down into Old Semitic, it just means the king of Zedek. So in the book of Jasher, Melchizedek is a central figure. And Melchizedek was a line of possessors of information going back to Shem. Shem had no beginning and had no end, according to this mindset, this priesthood after the cataclysm. So they named every king after Shem was of the order of Melchizedek, which meant they were in possession of the very information of the original Melchizedek, king of Zedek, who was Shem. Shem was the son of Noah, the survivor of the flood. Well, Shem survived the flood too. Shem had all the knowledge of Noah and had lived in the pre-flood antediluvian period and knew everything that was supposed to be known about the gate in Egypt, which was called the pillar. It was the pillar of God. It had many names in antiquity, built at a place called Akuzan, which is mentioned also in the book of Jasher. So when I don't know what the Mormons are attaching to here, but the oldest references to Melchizedek I have ever found are what the Bible refers to as source material. Because twice in the Bible we have, is this not written in the book of Jasher, showing that the book of Jasher is a chronological record. That's all it is. It's a year by year record covering like 5,000 years of history. So it says that Melchizedek is basically a priesthood that possesses information from a world that is pre-cataclysm.
Yes. Yep. And I think that they know all, like, it aligns with everything, everything you're saying here. And when they do such curious things, and I bring this up too before I pop out of this little display, like taking and digging up their dead people, just so people know, these canes were made because Joseph Smith and his brother were dug up, and the nasty oak, this is very important. The Golden Bough is something people should actually read if they want to understand a lot of things too. But anyway,
James Frazier's the key. He's the key. Yes. I'm so glad you said that. I am guilty of promising my community years ago that I'm going to give them some James Frazier presentations, and I never followed through with it.
I never
so followed through with it. I did one on Burton Raffle For those of you who don't know who we're talking about the great mythographers who brought us the decodes on the fairy tales and on the nursery rhymes and on the traditions of Europe and the deeper meanings of what they're talking about. Like the older Aesop's fables. Yeah, James Frazier, The Golden Bow. What a quote. I'm impressed.
Yes. And Dr. Luke Johnson does a breakdown of this on here. He's a very small channel. I've been on a couple different times and we broke some things down. He doesn't love when I go down the Mormon road with it, but I'm sorry, it matches so good. And so of course I always sneak my little comments in there, but he's great. He does go through it. He's going through it chapter by chapter. And I think he's probably on there today. So if you just look up Golden Bow, Dr. Luke Johnson, he's probably put one out today. But I highly recommend, if you don't want to do that, find somebody or read the book or get the audiobook or whatever. You got to do it. Like, it's just, I mean, he told us so much. I was like, wow, this is bananas. And this, again, we get back to, okay, we've got the Scotta Chronicon ends up missing from Dartmouth after the Smith family leaves town. They're definitely involved with the whole startup of Dartmouth, and we can get there like another time, or you guys can check out my show called The Dartmouth Deception, or I'm happy to come back anytime. It's critical to understand that there are hands in every piece of the early colleges, secret societies, and magic. And so, the Scotta Chronicon disappears when this family disappears. His great uncle was the rare books collector in town and the very first professor of Dartmouth. And they'll say he wasn't, but he was. And so, he's like a distant cousin, and they'll be like, oh, he's so distant that it's too distant-y. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's on both sides. So get out of here. Also, like, the Max went on to found a ton, Pontiac, Michigan. This all happened right by the Susquehanna River when all of this stuff was going on with this family. Like, you just have to understand all of the pieces of the puzzle and why this fit in so perfectly for Joseph. But even in his death, they didn't leave him be. They dug him up. They took pieces of the blood-stained, grody, decomposing coffin, made these canes with them, and they made something called the Cult of the Black Sticks. And now they're black because they're decomposing bodies. And the hair of both Hiram and Joseph is in the top of this cane. This is the kind of stuff they're doing. And I'm just saying, look, this isn't Christian, okay? Not every wizard has a wand. Sometimes they have a staff, okay? So these are passed down. These still are in existence today. You can go see them at the Pioneer Museum here in Salt Lake City. Wow. So, I mean, we have to understand that this is something that is just very magical in nature. And this was Joseph Smith's serpent cane because he was sick as a young boy. He had typhoid fever and ended up with a limp, had a horrible surgery, which is how Dr. Nathan Smith from Dartmouth, who goes on to find the medical school of Yale, who was a grave robber, ends up in this picture. And then, of course, the families are still intertwined with Yale and the Skull and Bones and all that stuff that I've told you. So it's one big branch of esoteric people. And the top still do this. Like you said, you're like, okay, a lot of this child stuff that was bad and all these horrible things that are linked back to, top elites in the church. I mean, there's a case here of the Levitts. He got on TV and he's an attorney. He was the state attorney and said, like, somebody asked him this, but nobody asked him this. He just got up and said, I am not a cannibal. I'm not kidding. And everybody was like, no one asked you, bro. Like, what are you doing? And so look, he gets all nervous, and where does he run? He goes and buys himself a castle in Scotland. I'm not kidding. Wow. So, I mean, we can't just throw it all out the window just because it's old timey. That's what they want you to believe.
I would love to have access to that Scottish Chronicon. There is. Yeah. I don't know if it would have had it in there, but are you familiar with the Declaration of Arbaoth?
The what? Sorry.
The Declaration of Arbaoth. It's Scottish.
I am not. I don't.
It's a document that was found centuries ago, and I don't. It's probably a part of that Chronicon. It was probably added to it because it was a sensation for a while, but it traces the Scottish people over Europe in their migration toward the west, coming from the southern Russian steppes, originally called Cimmerians, Cimmerians, and how before that they had been in Assyria, and before Assyria they had been somewhere further south toward the Mediterranean. So pretty interesting.
Wow.
It's called the Declaration of Arbaoth. It was
Hmm.
it was in a chest. It was in a chest of the whole of the oldest and holiest of Scottish relics for a long time, and I'm wondering if that's the chest you're talking about that was stolen.
That is very curious. That makes me wonder because, they always say they have all this stuff to support, and it makes you wonder. I mean, they have a vault just like the Vatican.
Right.
Speaking of that, they have the same exact layout as the Vatican, right? Their grounds, and it makes a sign,
Yeah.
for people that when you look from above. They also have something that they took out. I think it was because it was a little too on the nose. They have the temple with the jutting obelisk type off the top. Okay. And then they had something called the Fountain of Living Waters. And I think that was leading people to the goddess. And I think they didn't like that. So they took it out, even though it was supposedly very important to the Mormon people.
There has
So
got to be a connection. You're going to cover this, but there has got to be a connection between the massive amount of censorship during the rise of Mormonism and the Smithsonian. There's got to be, because
there is.
there is so many things that were discovered around Utah that I'm privy to, and a bunch of these older gazettes, newspapers, and reports from different books. There's got to be some type of connection because a lot of it was suppressed.
A huge connection, and the Chicago fire supposedly destroyed all the fun stuff, because like Joseph had mummies from Egypt supposedly, and all this stuff that ended up at the Smithsonian that were destroyed. And he does talk about mounds. He goes into all of it, man. Like if you guys read Steiner or what's his name, the sleeping prophet. Why can't I think right
you're
now?
talking.
Casey, Edgar Casey.
Edgar Casey.
Him.
Yes.
That will, like, when I first started looking into things, I didn't know about any of that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is too on the nose. You look at the two-eye stone that Edgar Casey talks about, which they never want you to talk about. In fact, we had somebody on Occult Rejects. They're great, and I was on there, and they had this guy on, Dr. Little, and I brought up that, and he's like, why do you know about that? Like, that's really obscure. I'm like, oh, because I'm a nerd. Like, I don't know. Well, because Joseph Smith had a magic rock. What do you mean?
So Edgar Casey, I want to give you a 30-second rundown on what I found out about Edgar Casey. All right. So 1900 and 1901, Edgar Casey has some spells where he basically comes to the realization that he can diagnose other people. He can go into this little trance, or he can go to sleep, and he can wake up, and he knows what's wrong with people, and equally knows what they need to do to correct it. So this is who Edgar Casey is. When Edgar Casey starts getting popular, people start noticing this. But early on in his career of healing, because all his first readings were nothing but healings. He just healed people. He just diagnosed people. But other people got attached to his entourage from the Theosophical Society and later the Golden Dawn. And then all of a sudden, he's given readings on stuff that he's never been educated on, doesn't know anything about. And all of a sudden, he starts giving the false chronology on several things that have been corrected in Archaix. Because believe me, I've got the receipts on the Atlantis dating.
On
ancient dating systems and all that. But Edgar Casey didn't have those receipts. He didn't know. And around 1917, 18, 19, let me tell you something. Edgar Casey changed. And now he's given all this mystical mumbo jumbo as if somebody, when he was going into his hypnosis now, because now he's being hypnotized. So when he gets hypnotized, it's almost as if somebody is reading Isis Unveiled to him. Somebody is now reading The Secret Doctrine to him while he's hypnotized. Somebody's reading Anne Besant. Somebody's reading Rudolf Steiner's mystical stuff, not his medical stuff, but his mystical stuff. And it's like Edgar, everything about it changed. And now when Edgar Casey is given readings, people ask him questions, he gives these elaborate responses on all kinds of things that have nothing to do with what he originally started doing. So I believe that he was hijacked. I believe he was genuine. He was really doing what he was doing. Somebody saw the value in this and realized, well, shit, we can really introduce all this into the field using this guy because he's already gained the public trust.
I believe that's exactly what happened to Joseph Smith. I believe once you cross over into this realm that we're really not supposed to be in, okay? And if you do the things that they want you to do, especially if you're willing to offer up a blood sacrifice. And I do want to explain one other thing is that Joseph Smith's father, they lost their oldest son, due to accidental poisoning just for constipation. Right before Joseph Smith received the golden plates and translated them. And then Joseph Smith, in the middle of the night on the fall equinox, dressed in all black, borrowing a all black everything, like he had to borrow a black horse from his neighbor, which is why he had to explain it to the neighbor, who later on wrote an affidavit, not silly, he said, she said, like an affidavit submitted into court when they're burning witches, okay, at this time. I don't think he would have necessarily wanted to go on the record saying this if it wasn't true, because it's going to put the heat on this guy. But he gives this statement in court, as many others do. And you guys can find this in The Refiner's Fire. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. And he talks about them not only talking about animal sacrifice will do instead of a human sacrifice. Okay. They try that with a black sheep from the neighbor. And then, he goes and does all this stuff and supposedly gets the plates. And his wife becomes pregnant shortly after this because she was there, but she was waiting in the carriage, so they say. And shortly after that, he has a son who they named the dead brother's name. And he only lived for moments because he was severely deformed. Severe. Like, come on. This got Faust all over it. And I don't care what people want to say, like, oh, back in the times, old timey dead. I don't care. Like, that is very strange. And let alone the fact that when his brother died, this is real. And this was ran by the father 6 times, okay, in the paper, the Palmyra. And you can see it's basically saying, and people can read this word for word if they want, we're going to dig him up because you said we dug him up, and we didn't dig him up. So we're going to dig him up to show you we didn't do anything to him. Okay. Sounds good. What? So people joke around that the brother had a hand in Mormonism.
So it has been an accusation in the past. I don't know if it's attached to Mormonism at all, but there's been accusations in the past when people have claimed to have had a deformed baby and they put them down, that actually it was a baby that was sacrificed almost right after being born.
It was almost right.
And the only thing that made the baby deformed is what they did to it.
Yep. And then this is the last thing. I'll close this window and we can talk about the CIA and stuff. But this is the actual characters down at the bottom here of how Joseph Smith translated the book. He did not get word for word. He got symbols. He would put the rock in his hat, much like Nostradamus, block out all the light, like Nostradamus used water, but this is all channeling. John D, everybody. And they block out the light, and then he would put his stone in, and he would call out these characters, which he would later translate, okay? And they meant certain things. And so they have a copy of this simply because they tried to have this reformed Egyptian actually looked at by a scholar. They didn't tell the scholar where they got it from. His name was Anton. And this is from the Anton papers, if anybody wants to check this out. And he said, but where did you get it? Yeah, it looks legit old. Like, I think it probably is something ancient language. And they said, we got it from an angel talking to us. And he's like, get out of here. And they're like, can we have our paper back? And they're like, no. So that's why it's here. It's up above is, John Dee's Enochian language. And it's a mix, really, honestly, of the two. You can look and see the similarities. And then if you go and look at the Micmac, their writings, very interesting indeed. And so we're talking about channeling. This is a channeled religion. That's just what it is. And we can't get rid of that. Like, I don't know what else people, we can take the screen sharing away, but I don't know how people want to like deal with that or resolve that in their mind. But like, obviously that is exactly what we're talking about here. Now that's Joseph's part. All this magic stuff, is Joseph. I don't know how much magic Brigham had. However, he was a Mason. As Joseph was a master Mason, he was risen to a master Mason within a day. That's not very normal either. And so, yeah, he knew some stuff. Like, let's be realistic. Like, you know.
Well, in order to be okay, so when a guy who, like, let's say the Marines, so a guy has been for 3 years in like force recon. It's very easy if he was to change, what arm of the military he was in, and when he was done with then, it's very easy for him to go into a Delta squad, because he's already got the training, he's already done all this, and they would just put him through the training where he's at, and he'd be in. So it's very easy for someone in a Fortune 500 company at a very high corporate level to make the change from one. So basically, what you're describing is that in order for somebody to be given, you're not talking about honorary, you're talking about for somebody to given status in like the Scottish Rite or in American Freemasonry or whatever. That means Mormonism must have the same structure. It's just a little bit different for them to make that transition and be recognized that way.
Yes. And I think his was more of a, at the time we're talking about with Joseph and the time he lived in, Scottish Rite Freemasonry wasn't organized very long. I really believe this goes back to Martinus, but they do say he was part of the other brotherhood, not Scottish. Why can't I think of that? They only have a couple degrees. York Masonry.
Yeah.
And so, the point, and Joseph Smith, he had, his magical stone, and he wore his talisman. We've got Brigham Young, who's wearing a blood stone, and he wears it proudly with all his Freemasonry stuff. And we get into the point where he is the one really coming together with the government. But not only that, he starts sending missionaries, and so did Joseph Smith, to England. And the Rothschilds do become involved, and so do the Catholics, and they do vice versa sometimes later under David M. Kennedy. Watergate is all about Mormonism. Watergate was very involved with Bennett, and Bennett was a piece of that whole puzzle. Howard Hughes was integral in that. This had to do with a loan from Don Nixon that was unrepayable, and it's the brother of President Nixon. So when we're talking about this, you have to understand that, Gay, his last name was Gay. He was basically an errand runner for Howard Hughes, but then ends up taking over his empire. And Howard Hughes is supposedly this raging drug addict, but he's got broken needles broken off inside his body when he dies.
There's something off with that. It's like Watson taking over for Sherlock Holmes. Yeah.
Well, and once you read the Golden Bough, like, you start to understand the myth that they may have fed him, because if you read the Golden Bough and the king, his feet aren't supposed to touch the ground. He's not supposed to cut his hair or fingernails unless they're taken from him in his sleep. So, Howard Hughes doesn't sleep. So his hair and fingernails get crazy long, and he doesn't touch the ground. He wears toilet tissue boxes, Kleenex box on his feet. And he becomes, yes, I am assuming he did become very addicted to drugs, but I don't think that was all his idea, because one thing about drug addicts that I'll tell people, they're not going to break off the needles. Get real. They know how to do it. But maybe one ever, they figure it out real quick. They're like the best ever on drawing blood or any of that. So, like, look, you're not breaking off multiple needles. And the guy was 6'4" and weighed 97 pounds when he died. And he was extremely
if there's evidence of broken off needles or a whole bunch of it's because somebody else is injecting them.
It's because you were forcefully trying to tense your muscle at the time. And you have to think of, what did those needles look like back then? They were like metal, real, like not bendable, tiny, thin. No, none of that. They were horrible. And so they had access to Howard Hughes's money through Howard Hughes Medical Institute. And why was Howard Hughes Medical Institute and is so important to this day? Because it backed the CIA 100%.
Yeah, it was the NASA of its day. I mean, all the fake things that they were really trying to do, like the Spruce Goose and making the jump, the biggest airplane in the world. They didn't care if the thing was successful or not. No. These are things they gave the public to justify where all this money was going. But it was like NASA before NASA.
HughesNet satellites
Yep.
Whoever remembers HughesNet? Well, what do you think
Yep.
that was? Those are satellites placed by Howard Hughes.
Yep.
Like, this was a no accident. Who took that over? Elon. And why did he have access to that? Well, I don't know. But who's his number one financial manager? Jared Birchall. Who's he? I don't know. He's a Mormon. So every time, right?
Yep.
Like every
Yep.
time I'm trying to study something, I'm like, why are you here? I wasn't even studying about you right now. Why are you around Permindex, Carrie Thornley? What is going on with you, Carrie Thornley, the Mormon? Like,
Yeah.
that's weird. Like it's just strange. And when we look at that and we look at, Bob Bennett being, basically the front company for all of Watergate's messes, we get into Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which Howard Hughes puts all of his assets, including planes, underneath this medical company where he doesn't have to pay taxes anymore. Right. That's weird. You think they would just approve that? No, they rejected it twice. Why did they approve it on the third time? Because Nixon pushed it through. There's an answer. And who really killed RFK? Well, RFK Jr. will tell you himself. He believes it was, one of his security guards, right? And the security guard is Thane Eugene Caesar. And who is he? He's a Mormon. And who did he work for? He worked for Skunk Works until 4 days before he worked as security detail on that, And Yamaguchi will tell you he got shot from behind. Well, Sirhan was never behind him. And the trajectory was completely wrong for a short guy. It was, you'd have to be tall to make that. And he was in front.
Yeah, the whole Kennedy affair, it's like, let me rephrase that. The whole Charlie Kirk affair is just Kennedy 2.0. There's so many things. There's so many things that were all thrown out there. I don't know if Mormons had anything to do with the Kirk.
Oh, they did.
But they may have.
And George Zinn, you know who George Zinn is through that, right?
Educate me.
He's the guy that pulled down his pants and they arrested him first. And he's the old guy that was weird.
Oh, okay,
he's a Mormon, grew up in Utah.
So they're all part of Actors Guild. They're all involved. I get it. So I will say this, Heidi, to be humorous and maybe even a little not so comical, I will provide this disclaimer to you Mormons out there. This is Archaix. In Archaix, we have 1,030 videos, and we've only had Heidi on here one time. So please don't kill me.
And I'm in Utah, and I like my life, and I would never do anything to unalive myself.
Yeah. Little disclaimer out there. I got dogs to feed. Don't kill me.
Exactly.
I got dogs to feed.
I got a doggy too. I get it. No, it does make me anxious because they are, 30 miles from me in any direction. Okay. We have got the NSA. We've got the CIA. We've got the FBI. We've got the IRS. And I'm missing one. Oh, they're building a new one for weather modification.
Saying IRS has a headquarters
and a Hill Air Force Base. Well, they have, I don't know if it's quote unquote headquarters, but they have big branches of these here. So the IRS is in Ogden. There's an Air Force Base. There is underground dumps, like you spoke about, verified. Then we have the NSA, which is huge. And I do believe that is a headquarters out in Draper. And then we've got the FBI in Farmington, as well as I think one other place in the CIA. So
what's crazy to me is that hearing this, and we're not even scratching the surface. We haven't even talked about 0.01% of the conspiracies that are really out there. And yet hearing all this in this short presentation so far, people are still baffled that I am promoting that there is a reset protocol called the Phoenix phenomenon that is specifically designed to undo all this shit, because we can't. They're too enmeshed. They're too powerful. They're financed. They're all networked together, and they do this over and over and over. And the only thing that can oppose them is the Phoenix phenomenon. It's the only thing they fear. So and people are so against my whole theory, and yet I got so much data to support how it's been operating for thousands of years. It's
and I want to tell you one more thing that I think is really integral. I'm not sure how much time frame we have, and I want to be
however long you want to go.
Okay, I didn't want to, load you up, but this is really important. So the crossover with IBM and Bill Gates, and Bill Gates, if you look at the Mormons' top holdings in Mormons Inc., okay, in the church, and the Ensign Peak scandal, if you look at this and you see who is the top holding for the Mormon Church today and has been, it's Microsoft, okay, and also Alphabet and all the things, Amazon, all the best things, okay. And we look at this and we say, okay, they're hiding all their money. They got in deep shit with the Ensign Peak scandal right before what kicked off? COVID. And so that's very interesting. I'm not going to go a whole bunch into that because I know we'll get in trouble. But
Yeah.
look it up. You know, you guys look at the Ensign Peak scandal and see exactly what was going on there.
Hey, it's just like 9/11. It's just like 9/11 when all those prosecutorial files were ready to be opened and indictments were ready to be served, and somebody decided, let's put all these prosecution files on the Bush crime family and let's put them right here in this tower. Well, while at the same time, billions of dollars in bullion, gold and silver bullion, were never found in that mess. They were supposedly melted in the ruins. Yeah, same thing.
Yep. Same thing. And it's interesting to me that it's constantly popping up with these obscure, nicest people ever. Why are you there, dude? Like, what is happening that you are involved in some weird scandal involving ritual sacrifice of children? What is happening with that? Like, when you look at certain things, and LDS Abuse does a great job on covering that portion of SRA. I've had him on multiple times, and I just want people to know this all interfolds into these 3-letter agencies and into other countries. And don't forget that that's where they were sending their missionaries early on, let alone their incorporation with the Seixas family, SEIXAS, which is hugely important when you guys look at Russian connections and other things. And right before Joseph Smith was killed, Orson Hyde was supposed to go to Russia, and he had already been to the Mount of Olives and dedicated that for, you know, the Mormon Church as a piece of their land before the Balfour Declaration happened. What does that mean? Does that mean that the Mormon Church actually technically owns that? Like, if you really want to go back to how we claim land, like, that's pretty scary. I don't know, but I know they did it. I know they did that. And, you know, I don't know, you know, let alone Mazer and Peter Thiel and all of these weird things that it just doesn't make any sense. Like, if you told me this as a Mormon, as a card-carrying Mormon, right, I would have just looked at you and said, you are full of shit.
Yeah.
That is insane.
What's the best way to run the world? Make sure that the very people that are your support base think that someone else is doing it.
Absolutely. 100%. And then we've got the involvement and the theology aligning with, you know, the war and the Nazis. Okay. And here's the funny thing. They had the same exact theology. They had the 1-drop rule, and they told Hitler, look, dude, we will help you with your genealogy stuff because you had to have the Aryan passes to go and work and everything. So they were like, we will help you with that, but we want the records. We want the records because we're doing our crazy genealogy for all the dead people, to get all the dead people spirits onto all these innocent people, my conjecture. Anyway, so, you know, we want your records. And they said, okay, just trade. Sure. So they do. And who is on the board of IBM around this whole time frame, like right shortly after? They always look at the dad of Bill Gates, but nobody ever really looks at Miss Mary Gates. Okay. Mary Gates is on the board of IBM at this time. She secures a place for her son in this world that is just bananas. And he is the top farming landowner in America now, only second to, guess who? The Mormon Church. Mormon Church. Wow. And when we look at that and the fact that Bill Gates is their number one, you know, that's who they are investing in. You don't want that person to fail if that's your number one on your portfolio, right? On stocks, you want them to succeed, and you'll do whatever you have to do that. So that is a terrifying thought to me, to think, okay, so the Mormon Church owns a bunch and Bill Gates owns a bunch. Yeah, we're in trouble because the Mormon Church doesn't give two craps about anybody that's not in their church. They used to say, screw all the people. Like if you talk to a fundamentalist Mormon, they'll say, oh, we only interact with the government to bleed the beast, and death to the government. And one day the government will be taken over by Joseph Smith's, whole prophecy there, the white horse prophecy. And they even built a replica of the presidential office inside the Washington, D.C. temple. That's how serious they are. They're not kidding, and we get into genetics and genetic studies and genetic
Listen, the
mastery.
Mormon temple could become a new capital if anything happens in the eastern portion of the
That's
United
their
States.
plan. That's their plan. That
So,
is
yeah.
their plan. And they used to always say they were in the order of Enoch, and that they were more of a communistic, group, for lack of a better word.
Order of
And this
Enoch
is
is it's a nod toward the 13th degree of Freemasonry, the Royal Arch of Enoch.
Scary, kind of, when you look at what they were setting up on their own, the state of Deseret, the Order of Enoch, all of this stuff. And then they've got their hands on all these intricate records from the war, clear back, to the beginning of time, Charlemagne, everything. They've got all the records that the church has kept forever, right? The Catholic Church and different churches. And so, well, where did they get them from, right? Like, okay, we've got the tie with Mary Gates, but we have proof in declassified FOIA docs that the CIA said it was okay, that they could do it. And who put them in and made it, entered in digitally underneath Howard Hughes with all his access to his money?
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gay. And who is Bill Gay to this day? Even his daughter-in-law is the real Salt Lake City wives, this Heather Gay, whose dad was a Fed, by the way. So I hope you enjoy her new show. But he's like a complete Fed. Like, I mean, I don't know what she's going to tell you that's true. That seems bananas. But all this is put in place. It's a grand theater. That's what it is. She's like, oh, I escaped the Mormon church. And I'm like, your dad's a Fed. He died, but I'm just saying. Do you know what he did?
It brings a whole new light to hidden in plain sight. So,
yep. And he was one of these Indiana Jones guys that would go around collecting what? Ancient artifacts. Yeah. Put that one together. Like, he got awards for it and everything for the state of Utah.
Most of Utah, all of Utah is over the 30th degree latitude parallel, isn't it?
All of their temples are built on the 111th.
Yes, see, this is it's extremely important because I have models in Archaix that show what's going to happen in 2040, and we're talking about a 30-degree shift, and it's probably temporal. It's not going to be permanent until 2046, but that shift is dangerous for all because the center of the United States is like a washboard. It's trapped between the Appalachian Mountains, which are of lower altitude than the Sierra Nevadas. And the entire center of the United States is like this former ocean bed. And it's very easy if there is like any type of lithospheric displacement. Even if this is all simulated, it doesn't matter. In temporal, the Gulf of Mexico is a massive body of water that's going to stay in place when the landmass moves 30 degrees south. Even if it's temporal, it's still going to be a tidal wave the size of the Gulf of Mexico going all the way up to the 30th parallel. Which is it's bad. So then even if it goes down, it's still going to pull everybody who is on land and the surface materials, the cities, everything's being pulled into the Gulf of Mexico when it returns, days later. So it's interesting that whoever thought of Salt Lake City as being a great place probably knows a lot more about the Phoenix phenomenon cycles of destruction than
they do, because I've heard this before. What you just said to me, I've heard in my theology stuff from my grandma. So why does she know that? She's just an old lady that's been dead quite a while now.
Yeah, anybody who's looked at the topography of the United States can see this has already happened in the past. It's why Texas is so flat in so many of these central plain deals. This is a cycle. So it's
yep.
That's pretty interesting.
And it's scary to know, like, they even moved the Oddfellows temple. It was on a different degree, and they actually picked the building up and moved it to the 111th. That's how serious they are about all this business, And when we're talking about like the portals and genealogy and Ubermensch, and it gets really crazy because I believe I have enough to prove that they don't only mean they're going to become gods like in their mind.
Yeah.
They mean that I think they were trying to make gods, okay? Because at a certain point, there was so much interbreeding because the Mormon lines that were original were marrying their brothers and sisters and aunts and stuff to keep their bloodlines pure, okay? The Kingstons still do it, the Kingston clan. King's son, Kingston, get
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we still have them doing it. They just hired a geneticist because they got super rich and they're like, screw you guys, we'll just figure out which sister to marry. Like, we don't care. And so they're doing this still to this day. They are holding to all of this, like the women don't cut their hair. And there's all these rules that make a whole lot of sense if you know the
This
backstory.
all sounds very, very rabbinical.
It
It's
is.
I mean, even Abraham had Sarai and
Yep.
Hagar. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
the polygamy. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
I think
the
you're right. And
obsession over family.
I think the Sykes intervention there, the SEIXAS, that Gershom Sykes, he is critical to this. And I haven't gone far enough down the rabbit hole on that yet. But you have to understand, they were teaching Joseph Smith Hebrew. His son was. So I don't know. This gets to the point where every single family, every single person, and they're right, because I did my DNA. I am related to every single president. I am related right now to the King of England. That doesn't make any sense. Why are these crazy people out here just in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, why wouldn't you just stay where you had it good? They had to promise them something. And I think I know what it is they promised them, forever. They promised them the second anointing gives them, this is the one thing we didn't get to, the temple rights regular. It's basically, yeah, you're going to go to the celestial kingdom. Probably don't mess it up. But when you get the second anointing, it's called making your place sure here on earth, that you will know that your place is made sure above. And how you get that is you have to be super important in the church, recommended for it, whatever, have family lines, different genealogy stuff. But these people, once they get there, like the apostles even wash their feet. If you go to the polygamous sex, the wife washes the feet with the hair. Like, this is all very curious. And they say they meet Jesus Christ and that nothing can take that gift away except killing an innocent child under the age of 8.
Man,
you can do whatever else you want.
I gotta stop you there because you're going so fast.
Sorry.
That we're going to bypass something that's
yes,
huge. So earlier in this presentation, and what's interestingly, you just cycled back to the very thing I want to talk about. You just said the killing of a child under 8. So, and earlier in this presentation, we talked about the baby being deformed. The actual deformation was actually caused by the baby was a sacrifice as soon as it was born. Now, okay, now we're going into a deeply rooted belief that rituals can secure a position for someone. Now, I want to add some clarity here, because if the Mormon practice is anything like high magic from the Middle Ages, then what's being promised isn't anything in this life. It's promising that you will be born into a certain body that you want and a certain identity that you want in your next incarnation. The rituals are done now in order to guarantee that the departed spirit will come back where it's supposed to. So this changes what some of these baby sacrifices are. These rituals would be done against your enemies so that when that person dies in this life, their soul comes back into a pregnant woman who is prepared as a vessel for that enemy spirit to come in. So as soon as he comes in, you can do what you want to him. This was medieval. Like treacherous.
And Joseph Smith's family was known to say, like, he was going to be a seer before he was born. He was born on December 23rd, which is very funny. And we have to look at the whole thing. Like, I think they knew a whole lot. Okay. I think they were practicing high magic. We definitely know the people in Salem that were doing the accusing were usually the people that were guilty, right? And they got caught and they were like, she did it. That's what pretty much happened. He was, his great great grandpa, Samuel Smith, not Captain Samuel Smith. That's the next generation down. He was, part of Captain Samuel Smith was part of the Boston Tea Party, just FYI. He helped organize the whole thing. So we're not talking about schlumps, okay? We're not
Wow.
talking about dumb farm boys here. We're talking about he's hobnobbing with the guys at Dartmouth and the guy that set up Yale Medical School and his uncle and all these very important people like, the Sykeses is huge connection. We're talking about massive connection here. This is not the dumb farm boy story they want you to believe. And so when we look at this and we see it with the high magic and then the separation of the high magic in theory only, they kept it, but they had to go underground, right? They kept killing these people everywhere they went. And why would they do that? Well, if you're doing some stuff that people don't like back then, you're going to get tarred and feathered, which happened to Joseph Smith. He's practicing spiritual wifery. He's practicing baptisms for the dead. He's practicing, there's actual notes from people in their will saying, don't let the Mormons baptize me after I'm dead, before it was a known practice. We know this was going on, and I think he did let the cat out of the bag. He, they killed him for it. I honestly believe that. And then we see Brigham take it underground, not all the way. I mean, he did marry 55 women. So, I mean, clearly he didn't take it all the way underground, although he wasn't a closer. I think he only had like 57 kids. What a lousy.
At the same time that I want to say that's disgusting, I'm also a guy. I'm a little jealous.
Right. But I think it was more than that. I think what you were saying is they were planning these different pregnancies and different things. Like, I think all of this ritualistic stuff still continued. I just think it had to be, quieted up. Honestly, it was getting them into too much heat and it was exposing the orders, multiple orders, and it just was making it very uncomfortable for them. So the fact that they were able to go forward into the future, when we go forward into the future and we go into Mexico and we see him sending out missionaries, the Romneys, boom, settled Chihuahua, Mexico. Their family's huge out there. They start taking over stuff like crazy. I mean, they basically have taken over a bunch over in Mexico. We see the spiritualists go upward to Canada and hide under the guise of spiritualist seekers. And they are from the same line. Boom, they go up through Canada. We see people being sent to England. We see people being sent to Russia. We see them being sent to Israel. What is going on there? This is back then. That's not now. That's like back in the day, 1900s. This is scary, knowing that they could have gone forth and talked to every single one of those people at the top level and already made a different society that we know nothing about then, promising them this stuff that we're talking about, and showing them magic and miracles. Like, they know how to do dark stuff. So,
well, at the same time that you say that they know how to do dark stuff, and I agree, absolutely. I try to tell my community all the time, and I know you don't have the time. No, nobody has the time to watch 1,030 videos. I get it. So a lot of my videos are super long, but I'm never really focusing on the truly nefarious things that we're talking about now, but I am knowledgeable about it. I've gone pretty deep in my studies on things I don't like to talk about, and I rarely do. I talk about what's being done about it, and that we're not alone, and that we're immortals passing through a construct. And yeah, many souls here have signed the contract, and they're involved in the activities you're talking about. But there are many of us also that are free, and that's what I want to itemize here. We're free because you and I are talking about this, and we have many people listening to us. We are free to discourse about things that we have discovered and share it with other souls in the construct, because, in my opinion, I believe all of this is fixed programming, and that it is a background of absolute evil and toxicity. But as immortal beings, we're passing through this construct and we're learning to grow. And we come here many times on our way out And with each incarnation, each lifetime we live, we take on more information, and we forge an immortal personality. It's the only thing real here is our personality. These bodies don't mean shit, and much of our personality is completely cultural. It is attached to the very world you were born into, and a lot of that is stripped away when we leave. When we leave, all the cultural attachments are gone, and you're back to pure personality, who you are, and then you take on the dressings of a new avatar in your next incarnation, which is going to immediately give you new cultural attachments, because you're going to be born into a certain world with certain idioms and certain colloquials and certain cultural norms, and you absorb all these things. So I feel that it's necessary for those listening to understand that even though we're talking about dark and nefarious things, our experience here isn't necessarily dark and nefarious. Many people are free flowing through the construct it's a passage. It's not a destination. Although many souls that are doing these type of things have already signed the contract, and they are in feedback loops that have created this to be their destination. This is where they are. This is their world. And because they're so good at running the show, there are protocols set in the construct to knock them back down. And one of them is the Phoenix. And these convergence fields actually disrupt this overlording and this power and create freedom here. And I think that when you and I are free to talk about topics like this, that freedom extends into the spiritual realm as well, because I don't think they have absolute power to quash all dialogue. If they did,
No.
there wouldn't be a YouTube. There wouldn't be a BitChute. There wouldn't be an Odyssey. So I think they're restricted in their ability to deal with those who actually do discourse about the dark. I don't know how far that protection goes, but I feel it. I feel it when I talk to you, when I talk to other people about things that, a lot of people just don't want to discuss. So I just wanted to make that point.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. Like the whole reason why, and people always say, well, why do you care? You left the church, leave it alone. That's their favorite thing to say.
Yeah.
And if I didn't care about humanity, that's exactly what I would have done. I put myself and my family at great risk. I still live in Utah, and I am not a person that can hide. I am a registered nurse. That means I'm registered. That means they can find me. Okay. And I'm well aware of that. And I still speak because I believe, like you, there is good in the world. And we have to be part of the good. We have to stand for something that's right and true. And we cannot just say, I made it off the boat, screw everybody else, let them drown. Because if you do that, you are going to have to answer for that. And that is not something I'm prepared to do. And I know it's obviously not, if you've got over 1,000 videos, something you're prepared to do, right? We are trying to stand in their, like, in the pathway for these people, and they can choose. Like, it's all choice, but all we can do is present, and that's it. And I get a lot of heat for this. This is not, and I get a lot of heat in general because I'm not enough of a Christian for the Christians, and I'm not enough of a heretic for the heretics, and I'm somewhere in the middle there in a weird place because I don't subscribe to any like specific church anymore. I won't do it, and I just feel like it's been overtaken. It doesn't take away anything from me, it doesn't take away my knowledge or my love for God or any of that, but we recognize that has probably happened. And that's something that we have to accept and figure out your own best way. But at least if you have the truth, you won't be led astray. And if that's your pathway and you want to go be Harry Potter school, I don't care, that's okay. I won't not like you for it. I won't stop trying to help you for it. I won't treat you badly for it. I won't not let you come on my show for it. That's not okay with me, because free speech is important to me. So for them too, right? For both sides of the coin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, I don't really talk about things like karma and all that, but karma is just, if you break it down to its core component, we're talking about energy. And for them to be able to get away with the things that they openly do and the things that they secretly do. I think there is some type of contractual negotiation spiritually to where, okay, we're allowed to do this, you know what I mean? Which also carries with it that if these individuals don't trespass and cross certain lines, we're not allowed to retaliate against them for exposing us. But once they've crossed that line, or once they've done something that trespasses that boundary, whatever that boundary may be, then you're open game. Then you get anheshed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I have to be concerned about this kind of stuff for sure because, like I said, I'm here, and the worst part about me is I'm a cross check for people, and that scares them because if somebody says this bloodline, blah blah blah, this, guess what? I'm the litmus paper. I've been helping these people on Twitter that are doing that. And they're like, how did you find that out? I'm like, I used my line, my family line. I put myself in there to figure out if he was in the line, and I'm sure they hate it. And here's the thing at the end of the day, is the truth worth my life? I hope it never comes to that. But yeah, sometimes you have to stand up for something or what does it mean anyways, right? Like, I don't want to be the person that was a coward and just saved myself. That's not who I am. Obviously, I'm a nurse. Like, I want to help people. And that's, I get said, oh, you're just doing it for money or you're doing it for this. I'm like, yeah, none of that's real in podcast land. Maybe if you're like Rogan or something, I don't know, but that's not real. This is something that people do either to sell out or they're passionate for a reason because they had a life-changing experience. And that is where I am,
Yeah. I'm not going to let you trigger me on the Rogan deal. I'm so upset.
Sorry.
I'm so upset.
I was laughing about that. So we feel the same.
That, it's so sad. And it's not Rogan's fault. He's just playing a role. It's so sad that so many people believe that BS on his podcast. So bad.
And what did they do to him? Like at some level, like
he signed the contract. He signed the contract. I mean, he got on. I mean, he was already in. It's not like he started grassroots. He was already a public figure pretty much when he started and became a much bigger public figure.
He was eating bugs.
Getting other people to eat bugs. He was doing what the WEF wanted people to do. Zuzu eats bugs and you just like it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And it's sad because this is like my husband. He's still in the middle, and I know he's watching. I love you, honey. But he'll say something about Trump. I'm like, no, don't talk to me about Trump because of Roy Cohn. Just don't, because if you just go look at like there's this breakdown on every single one of these people, right? And I'm like, same thing for Rogan, same thing for anyone. And it makes me sad that he'll say something and I kind of have to, I'm like his Debbie Downer, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. Like, this guy no, it's not good. Like you start to know so much that, like you said, it seems like you're the same way. Like, you're almost black pilled, but then I'm like, no, I'm not going to be. I'm going to be the light. Like, I don't want that for my life. I don't want that for my kids. I don't want that for my grandkids. And some things are worth fighting for. They really are. And that's why I do it. That's why my show's called Unfiltered Rise. I lost my brother to addiction many years ago. And when I became a mental health nurse starting to help people in addiction, I saw what I missed. Right. And same thing for this podcast. I almost died. And I'm here, and God saved me for, I think for this reason. And so that's okay. People make fun of me. People call me a man, all kinds of crazy stuff, and you just
believe me. I know it. I got, there's a video out there somewhere. I don't know where it is. And I don't care. I don't care if my community watches it. There's a video out there somewhere where somebody used some type of computer program and shows me at different meetups walking around and then has the math all manipulated and showing lines going this way and that way, saying this is female anatomy, female bone structure. Making me in the video a lot shorter than I am in real life. A lot of people have met me, a whole bunch of people have let me in meetups. But you're going to get the trolls. The trolls are everywhere. I've got so many different people taking shots at me, but they all pick out.
It's the podcasters now too.
Yeah,
it's the podcasters
points out of 100 is what they will pull out and then tell their own communities, I debunked Archaix. It is so pedantic, but this is what you're up against. Once you become public, you're going to be attacked over and over. And I invite it because I'm not going to give up either. Yeah, I'm never going to be quiet about this shill, Graham Hancock, and all his friends and all the people that copied him. And it's incessant. So if I'm going to do it, I am not going to shut down those who do it to me.
Yes. Yep. 100%. And we know we're going to take shots, It was hard when I first came into the community. It felt really loving and
Just can't take it
accepting.
personal.
Yeah. But then you learn, this is just a business, like for most of them, not everyone, but it does get harder because you think, you're already kind of alone in your brain. Because if you know all this stuff and you research all the time, you're just reading books a lot, you kind of feel like you don't fit in the world a little bit, and that's hard, and I'm 5'9", and as a woman, that's rough anyway. Like growing up, you just never feel like you quite fit in general, and I think I never did. And I think that's because I wasn't supposed to. Okay. And I'm okay with it at this point, but you always have that hope. You always want that hope. And I think that's what I want to put out there for people. Like, I should have never broke free, ever. I was born into this, and not just born into this from one generation. This is as far back as the beginning. Okay.
Wow,
The
that's
very
awesome.
beginning. But I got out, and
So
you can do it.
it begs the question. Then it begs the question, and you don't even have to answer this. It's just something that's been on my mind for a little while. Because people really run wild with all kinds of theories, and I avoid them. Nowhere on my channel do I have a single video that focuses on bloodlines. Although in Q&As it's been talked about a few times, but I do have uh, some curiosities. So, do you think that there are blood types or bloodlines that make you immune to being anheshed, or for whatever reason? Is there something about your blood that, even though those who have the same blood type hate your guts because you were exposing them, there is some inviolable law they cannot trespass because you have the same DNA? The reason I'm saying this,
I believe so.
in other people's lives, I have seen some really strange shit where, man, if you'd have been anybody else, they'd have taken you out. You know what I mean? You got up in front of all of Hollywood's greatest executives and producers on live TV, and you just smoked them all about child predator shit and had them embarrassed, and not one person could get up and get you off that stage before you were done doing what you were doing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep,
How
I
they
do.
getting off that guy. How there's other examples that we have of people getting offed for just saying the slightest trespass against Hollywood elite. And then you have others that have been in and out of Hollywood who can say whatever they want to say, and they're in a shit that nobody else can do about it. So I'm
I think
wondering,
that's
if
real.
are you
Yeah.
immune? Do you feel that your blood type may, or your genetics, your bloodline, do you feel that even though they don't like what you're saying, that there is some type of unknown structure here that they can't violate?
I think it's funny that you asked this because I always talk about this, and I do come from the Rh negative bloodline. I don't have it, but I come from it. I do have green eyes. And I'm very tall, different things that are weird. But I also feel like the genetic bloodline here, when it goes back to the real genetic population for the Mormons, it must mean something, because I'll tell you, I've known a ton of people that come out and talk crap on the church, and they are immediately excommunicated. I have been out of the church over a decade. I've been talking crap for over 3 years. And my neighbors all know who I am and what I do. Like, at some point, it is, people know. They noticed. There's people that listen from my community. Like, literally, I'll run into people or whatever. But my neighbor for sure knew, and she was even top Relief Society president. I know they reported me. I'm sure they did. And yet I am not excommunicated from their church. I am on their logs as an
Wow.
inactive member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I guess
Wow.
I'm going to have to get kicked myself out. I keep saying this because like I just assumed, right? Like this would happen by now, right? Like they would chuck me out like I've been waiting and nothing. And everybody else I've known is chucked out. And here I stand in the middle of Utah, right down the road from like 1,000 churches. Like I'm right here, you know, what is that? And so I think that goes to tell you like, yeah, I think there's something about that for them. And as far as for protection, I know that I've done studies on this, that there are certain bloodlines, and it's the O bloodline, that are immune to AIDS. You guys can look this up. This is JAMA studies. This is like Journal of American Medical Association studies. Okay. They try to replicate it and they can't. I hope it's natural. It scares me a little that it's not, because I know the genetic studies that they did here and what they did, starting with Orson Hyde's son. And it's a lot concerning here. You know, I don't know if you've read, I'm sure you have, The Sacred Book of the Cow. Have you read this?
Sacred Book of the Cow? No.
Okay. Well, like with the whole little man that they create, what's his name?
Homunculus?
Homunculus. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they had one of these societies here first. Like that's very strange. Why would they have that here in little old Utah out of nowhere? Like I just think it's very strange that there's a lot of things I see here that don't make any sense on the surface. But if you get down to the level and you see that one of the worst euthanasia, genetic stuff that they were doing with mentally handicapped people and all kinds of stuff was right here in Utah. That's pretty scary. It's also pretty scary that they forced sterilized a bunch of people, and it was one of the biggest states for it. Why would they do that? Well, don't forget what happens when you interbreed. You get a genius, a throwaway because too many problems happened, and a normal, right? And I think that happens a lot here. And I think they made sure that that wasn't going to continue on procreation. But let's not forget that all hell broke loose when the Clinton papers came out talking about what? Nimrod and his DNA and the museums. I don't doubt that.
You're talking about from the Gulf War?
Yep.
How the U.S. military focused on the museums and going in the museum basements and taking everything out?
Yep. And I don't doubt that with all of the money they've put into Howard Hughes Medical Institute, which has a huge CRISPR genetics division, I don't doubt with the Stanford Research Institute and all the connections with the CIA, let alone the funding for the original startup of Stanford was from heritage Mormon person. She was called the mother of Stanford. I can't remember her name right now, but Leland Stanford was the husband. She was the Mormon. They were interacting specifically with Brigham Young, and she sold out her shares for way underneath profit to Brigham Young on her railroad for Central Pacific. So when we talk about all this stuff, you know, and the Nazis and the genetic information they got from all that, it just frightens me a little bit. I hope and pray, and I always say, like, I hope they didn't do anything bad here. It's kind of scary. What did they do? I don't know. You know, they had a very small select piece of society that they could work with, and you've never been anywhere where you've met so many blondes and redheads as Utah. So except the last few years, it's changed a little bit in the last decade, I'd say, but yeah, there's a lot, a really lot.
It's really interesting because
yeah,
the red-headed race in ancient Egypt were called Typhonians. And I tell people a lot. About 2 years ago, I'd done a presentation and I let it slip that the origin of the whole red heifer deal was it's a washover. It's the people that are sacrificing the red heifer know the origin. The origin comes from ancient Egypt when the Egyptians would take red-headed people who were called the children of Set. And the children of Set were also called Typhonians. And Typhon was the bringer of destruction, and the Egyptians hated Typhon, and they felt that the race of Typhon, the white people with red hair, were the enemy, because it seemed like white people with red hair always did really good every time Typhon, the phoenix, appeared and reset civilization, and the Egyptians had to rebuild, but the Typhonians were always prepared for it, and it pissed them off. So when they captured them, they would sacrifice. They figured that they sacrificed red-headed people, they could stop the phoenix destructions from destroying all of Egypt. And by the time the Israelites had made their exodus, the whole thing had been human sacrifice wasn't used anymore. Now, instead of a red-headed person, they used a red-haired cow as the sacrificial victim.
That is wild. There's a disproportionate amount of redheads here. And I will say this, my poor husband's watching. I'm sorry, honey. I love you. He's a redhead, of course.
Yeah. You damn
so is my
Typhonian.
ex-husband. Yeah. My children are mine and a bunch of redheads. Right. So I didn't make any. Apparently I make a lot of blondes, but it's just strange when we look at certain things. And we also see that in Germany, when all the other churches were really persecuted, the Mormon church wasn't. And why? Because they said, oh, well, they had to obey the laws of the land. And then they sent them aid after the war, not to Germans that were suffering from like everything that happened. They sent it to the Nazis. And they got away with it because they said, well, they were Mormon. And so when we look at this, there is one quote that I love that supposedly Hitler said, but I can't vet it. I'm going to share it anyway. It said, of course, we don't mess with the Mormons. This is paraphrasing. They're the ultimate Ubermensch. And we had the one drop rule as well. In fact, Brigham Young is quoted as saying, if you ever race mix and have one drop of blood, like it's better to run them through with a knife than let them live. And so we get into the Great White Brotherhood. We get into these Egyptian, we're back. We're clear back again, And I just really think it's interesting. And the last part, I think, other than questions, which I'm happy to answer anything. I'm unfiltered for a reason, and rise because I believe we can rise above anything, and unfiltered because that's your warning. Sorry. So, that's what it is. But when we look at all this mess, and there's a lot more to this mess, and it will probably always be that way, no matter how much we find out, we always see one thing, we see the left-hand path and the right-hand path, and that is true. And we can choose where we go. Okay.
I
and
agree.
the Mormons themselves say, we worship another Jesus. And this is old theology. Okay. They don't say this anymore because they'd be in deep shit. But really, and is that, and what does that Jesus always wear back then? Red. It's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we get, and that's why I say
we don't have in like core denominational Christianity, there's no real attachment to the color red at all with the whole Jesus narrative.
Yep. And it's interesting when we get to Cathars and see what they think. And then it's the one color that the fundamentalists won't wear. And so that's also interesting. But I just think it's all plays out for a reason. And obviously I was shown some of this crazy places, not downloads, but I'm always shown dumb little things like pick up that book. I go to the old bookstores, where people sell their old books, and these Mormons don't know what they have. It's like gold. And I go in there and I just pile on the books and go home and go through them all. And that's where I found most of my stuff. And I'm always just shocked because so much of it is just whitewashed again and again and again. And don't forget that church said, this whole agenda with, the Great White Brotherhood and everything else, what I was saying is, marry up the people and buy up their native children so you can make them more white and delightsome. And that is a quote. So when we're looking at humanity in this church, I'm sorry, that's not okay with me. That's not okay with me. And when we get back to loving one another, which is really important, and it's really hard sometimes, you know what? Some people suck. And, you just.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. And
Yeah, they
and
do.
and a lot of my family's still Mormon, so guess how happy they are with me, right? Most of them don't talk to me, and the ones that do think I'm batshit crazy, or, you know, if they know the truth, they're mad at me. Um, but we can all stand in light and bring that light, and, like, you'll know if you have that, you know, Christ-centered light, like, because dogs come up to me randomly, kids come up to me randomly, babies wanna come see me, like, it's just weird, and my son's always like, "Oh, did you know that lady from high school?" 'Cause I'll be in the store and somebody will just come up and tell me, like, half of their life problems, and I'll just, you know, be there with them and stand in their space that they need right then, and I'm like, "No, why?" And he goes, "That was weird, mom. You don't know that person?" I'm like, "No. What do you mean? I was just there." And he's like, "That I could never do that." I'm like, "Yes, you could." So, you
It's
know,
your
we have
energy.
to remember that.
They're yeah, they read animals eat it, read energy. Other people read your energy. Yeah, it's our religious
Yes.
attack. A lot of times we disguise, or we don't disguise. We actually mistake. We mistake the auric, basically an auric field, an energy signature that we're putting off that people resonate with, and they either feel relaxed around you, or they feel drawn to you, and all that. We often mistake what's personally intrinsic, a part of our informed field, our immortal self, our personality. That's where this energy is coming from. But we're trained to believe it's because we're Christian,
Right.
or we're washed in the blood of the Lamb, or that we're servants of Shiva, or that we're a perfectly balanced Taoist. So we're always attaching culture and concepts to what is intrinsically just us.
I just always hope that people will stop and in that space allow people, because you may be the one thing that helps somebody that day, and you never know, like, how desperate do you have to be to come up to somebody in a supermarket that you don't know and just completely, you know, let loose. I'm not saying in a bad way at all. I'm just saying, like, when did we stop being human, you know, and not appreciate that? And 2020 really made a big dent in that, because it took away our smile, and it took away our face, and it took away that connection. And I think we need to really harness it back,
It
because
it
ultimately
kept us six
we
feet
have
apart,
to.
so our biosignatures wouldn't mesh. Yeah, it
Yes. Yep. Yep.
in 2020, 2021, in the beginning of 2022, also pretty was a critical time when people became slaves of their cell phones and
Yeah.
literally detached themselves away from the human family.
That would record a bad incident before they run and help, right?
Yeah,
Like, let's not be those people. Let's not do that. You know, um, I just think we can be better than that, and that's what I want. That, and it doesn't matter if anybody else does it. For me, I hope so. There's hope, and there's love there for people that don't, but, like, I think we can. I think there's a lot of misery in this world, and I've
there is.
lost too many people to that, you know? I really have. I mean, we don't need that. There doesn't need to be that.
I agree.
People
I agree
need
100%.
help. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
a good
I
closing sentiment.
yeah, I love talking to you, actually. This has been amazing, and it's so nice to talk to somebody that's like, "Oh, yeah, this and this," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah," because you can't do that with very many people when you're a nerd. We
Yeah,
do.
I tell my community all the time, I'm a nerd. You guys think I'm cool? Yeah, yeah. You think I'm covered in tattoos from my neck all the way to my feet, except for my butt cheeks, man. And you know what? I ride a bike. I got a big monster Harley. I got a cool 18 van. I got my dogs and stuff. And people think I'm just cool as hell, and they just don't even know me in my personal life. I'm an absolute nerd.
Do you know some of the best people I've ever met in my life were not they would say to me, "Okay, your uncle, my one side was really Mormon, and my other side, my grandpa was from Chicago." And I always say my grandma was on a mission and my grandpa was on Mission Impossible, okay? So this is, like, real. And he was a 1% biker, and, my uncle was a sundowner, and they were pretty crazy people, okay? But they were some of the best people I ever knew. They were, like, some of the best hearts, like, literally, that I ever knew in my life. And people would say, "Is he a good guy?" And I'm like, "Depends." He is to me. He's
Yeah,
great,
absolutely.
and so everybody's like that for somebody. So we can't just discount people for how they look or what they wear, or how many tattoos they have, because you know what? We've all had our time, and I'm covered a lot in tattoos myself. So you just never know about
Oh, I
people.
know the Mormon church would not smile on
No.
that.
No, they wouldn't. That was long after I got out. I went through a little bit of a rebellious time, and then I just decided I was okay with myself, who I am, but doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's still part of my story. So, and I don't look down on anybody that way. I don't care. I could care less. I
Yeah,
read the room and the energy in the room, and I think it's really important. So,
that's
I
what it's
just hope
all
we can
about.
all be there.
Energy.
Yeah. Yep. Be there for people right now, because this is the hardest time of the year. So for anybody that's depressed, or I just want to say this because there's a lot of people that don't make it past this time.
I
For
know.
anybody that needs help, there are hotlines, there are people who care, there are people that love you, and you do not know how important you are. You will affect 20 people at least, even though you expect not to. So,
Yeah, man. It's suicide is high. The highest concentrations are in this part of the year. There's no doubt. But
yes.
my community knows. Listen, you got nothing else to do. You can come hang out for 8 hours with me on Christmas Day. For
Oh,
8 hours,
wow.
we're gonna go hard. Yeah, I'll be bringing my snacks. Sometimes I'll have my Modelo's. Sometimes I'll have water.
Hey,
Maybe
that's
some
what my
lemonade.
husband likes.
Oh man, I'm gonna have snacks, drinks. I got a mini fridge. I'm gonna spend 8 hours with my community
Woo,
on Christmas. And
wow. Well, maybe
oh,
I pop in and
I'll
say, hey.
also have 4 videos. I've already got 4 videos uploaded 3 weeks ago that are all dropping every 2 hours on Christmas Day.
Wow.
Yeah, I decided that December I was going into overdrive, and yeah, I got
That's
54
awesome.
uploaded videos, all and a bunch of them have already dropped. 2 a day drop, but on Christmas it's going to be 4, and then 2 a day till
Wow.
January 1st. Basically, all I did was bring back to the table the 300 videos that I did before anybody ever heard my name. I didn't even have 1,000 subs. I had 300 videos, and they're research videos that have hardcore data about this
Ooh.
world that I want to bring people. A lot of my veterans have seen all these videos, but they're new to a lot of people. So I brought them all back, but I edited out all the intros and all the obiter dictum, little things talking, and then on the front and the back, so you get just the core video. And a lot
Mm.
of people appreciate it. It's one of my new series, but it's once you've been on YouTube for a long time, Heidi, and you have a lot of content, your content is not old, especially the things you talk about. You can go back, go get your original 30 videos, your very first 30 videos, and you can't re-upload them to your channel. YouTube will flag you for that. You get penalized.
Okay.
But what you can do is chop off the old intros or you just making small talk and get to the meat and bones of the video, and then chop off the end if it's not relevant, and just you and somebody else talking, put a new intro and a new outro on it. Into YouTube, it's a new video.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Because there's a lot people ask me, "Oh, when did you cover this or that?" Because I cover a lot of things, and I didn't know that. And for
You
people
can you
that
can
do wanna
you can bring all your
follow,
old stuff back.
I get nervous sometimes about YouTube, so I have about 3 times the content on Spotify or other pod chasers, just because, I don't wanna get the ads. Some stuff is, I never know what you can and can't do, you
You know
know?
what? If I ever get the axe and YouTube decides to do away with me, listen, it's no big deal. Every single video I've ever put on YouTube is on BitChute. So
Uh,
I'll just change, and then from BitChute I'll spread out to Odyssey, and I'll spread out to True Social, into GitHub. I'll just start going everywhere from there. Right now,
good.
YouTube serves my purpose, but if I ever leave YouTube, I'm just going to go ahead and spider out to all of them.
Oh, yeah. Do a Mormon. Pull a Mormon. That's what they
Pull,
did.
pull a Mormon. That's good. Good
Oh,
stuff.
that's funny. Yeah, I've
Oh,
really enjoyed today. I
all right.
really
So this
appreciate
is your closing statement. Whatever you want to tell my community, whatever you want to direct them to, your links are in the description box right now. So
Amazing. Well, I really appreciate this chat, you guys, and you'll find me at Unfiltered Rise. I'm everywhere podcasts are served. I do have my own website, Unfiltered Rise Podcast, and you can check me out there. I have a Patreon. I do a lot of medical deep dives on there that are really interesting. I did just release one barely that I let out to the public called DMT, the Star of Bethlehem, and Angelic Visions. So it's kind of fun, a little different taste there for people. I don't just go into one one thing. I really like to study a lot of things. It just ends up that there's always a Mormon there. So that's not my fault. But so check me out there. I'm active on X. I do a lot of exposing on X and also on Instagram. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And thank
Okay,
you,
Heidi.
everybody.
Oh, what you can do is if you'll wait about a month, contact Big John. And if you want me as a guest on your channel, we
Oh,
can
I
talk
would
about
love that.
anything. We don't have to talk about Mormonism. We can talk about anything.
Yeah.
But I extend this invitation to people who've come on my channel, and I will come on your channel. We talk about chop it up about anything.
Oh, yeah. I'd love that. I'd love to go deep dive on the ancient Babylonian mysteries. Let's do
Oh
it.
yeah. Well, I mean, listen, people get really surprised when they find out that you can make a list of about 40 things that are inherently attached to Judaism. And then when you line them up with the Babylonian deals, you find they're exact. The
Oh,
religion,
wow.
the practices, the traditions, even the histories, they are the same.
Wow.
They're just being called something completely different now.
I would love to chat about that. I know you kept bringing up Egypt and your knowledge there seems amazing. So that would be awesome.
Egypt's awesome. Egypt is awesome. All right, Heidi, it's been good talking to you. I'm gonna address my community for a few more minutes before I let go. Yeah, I rarely have a guest on this long. Yeah, this is nice. It
Oh,
was
thank
nice.
you so much. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for listening and sticking with us. We know it went long. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You're used to my monologues. Holler at you later, Heidi. Yeah, she's got great energy. Another awesome guest. And I know she was also streaming on her own channel because we set that up in the beginning. I think that might be the first or second time that I've ever done that. I don't know how to do it, but she did. I think it worked out. That was an awesome chat. So I pretty much already told you. You already know today's the 21st. You want to hang out with me all Christmas Day? That's what it's going to be about. I'm not sure what time yet. I think my dad's going to be stopping by too. So it might be from like 3:00 in the afternoon to like 11 o'clock at night, something like that. It's going to be 8 hours, whatever it is. It may be earlier. I might start at 10 a.m. and go all the way to 8 p.m. I don't know. But I mean, 8 hours. We're going to go 8 hours. I just don't know exactly what we're going to be doing. I got a lot of things already planned that we're going to talk about. But of course, on Christmas, it's about sharing. So you're going to be coming up on the screen with me. I'm going to drop the link and you can come on the screen, and there could be one, just me and somebody. It could be 3 of us. It could be 8 of us all on the screen chatting about something. It's Christmas time. We're going to keep it informal. We're going to keep it informal. And maybe we'll get some good laughs and kick some trolls out. Who knows what's going to happen. So, let's see. As far as the Cypher community goes, Christmas is my deadline. Oh yeah, because money that comes in from Cypher, trying to spread it out among the admins, the mods, the developers, coders, people who spend a lot of time on this project, especially my principal app developer. So yeah, the price on Cypher is going up the day after Christmas, and that's non-negotiable. Yeah, what we're doing is amazing, and we're going to continue to do it. We do it every week. We do predictions every week. But I think Tuesday I'm scheduled to go into Cypher because we're doing a personal and professional prediction seminar because we got quite a few new people, about 20, and we need to show them the software, how it works, how they can use it at home. Yeah, removing me from the equation. You don't have to rely on me to do predictions for you in a live Cypher video. You can do them yourself. So easy. So anyway, Archaix Underground. I have, I believe, 31 or 32 audio files to upload to Underground. I'll probably get to it tonight or tomorrow. Oh, these are all the latest videos. And so if you're in the Underground, you're going to have a lot of new audio files. Big John and I are still ironing out the details, but we're going to have all the original Archaix TV videos, all the Tiny Hat videos, all that stuff, edited, re-edited like we did with this new set, and we're going to put them somewhere where the only way you can access them to is through the Underground. We're setting that up now. We got a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of projects A lot of projects are going on. Cole's working on his stuff. Big John works on his stuff. You know, we've got Jasmine and Allie are doing a fantastic job with Underground and Cipher Telegram group. It's Cheryl's doing a great job, although she's on vacation right now. She's doing a great job with the Archaix store. We got calendars and new mugs, and I love the new Underground merchandise. It's awesome. I just don't have any yet, Big John. I don't have any Underground merchandise. Sure would like some. So other than that, it's all good. I don't really have any other announcements to make, although I am going to be posting here within a couple of hours. If you're in Twitter, if you're on X, I got some good stuff to show you, really interesting things to show you about the Colburn Bible and things that we've talked about on YouTube, but some really, because now introducing the new scenario that Phoenix and Nemesis are bringing in a convergence field. How did we miss it? When we did 2 videos on the Colburn Bible, 685 pages. Colburn Bible's huge, but I had pulled out sections to read to you and I showed them to you on the screen. Well, I don't know why, man, but my spirit was just some reason, man. I woke up this morning thinking about the Colburn Bible. I'm like, man, I pulled my files out and I went to rereading those. I said, you know what? I can go ahead and repost some of these. They're interesting. And then I hit some sections. I was like, whoa, this is convergence field phenomena. This is what happens to people. I told you already that we had evidence that people who are vibrating on the right frequency, they go right through this stuff like it's nothing. But people who are a part of the collective, those who are already in dungeon programming, whose souls are moored to avatars that are absolutely subject to the field that we're in, these people go through some shit. And it's all described in the Colburn Bible. The Colburn Bible is doing everything but saying convergence field. It's crazy. I'm about to repost these on X with a whole new eye, with all new eyes here, understanding Phoenix and Nemesis are convergence field, tertiary field phenomena, not intruder worlds, not intruder planets, none of that shit. So incredible. Research never stops, guys. I tell you all the time. I got 500 videos in me. Yeah. So the other day I did answer. The other day I did answer somebody's friendly challenge or whatever. And I itemized all the reasons in community and on Twitter as to why this person doesn't merit any more attention from me. So I'm still sticking to that. I haven't seen anything. They've released a second video, which is nothing but pure attempt at engagement farming, trying to draw more Archaix's attention to a channel that's not getting any attention whatsoever, except from it's like a new hub for Archaix haters. So you're more than welcome to go check out the channel. But this is almost like a Gnostic Academy scenario all over again, where an individual cherry picks 2 or 3 things to say that they're wrong, but ignores 97 other ones. And it doesn't merit my attention at all. There's really nothing of professional standing here. So you're more than welcome to do what you want to, but I'm not wasting any more energy on it. I'm moving forward. So on Twitter, you can check out the new Colburn Bible post here in a little while. I just got some chores to do. I've been sitting at this computer for 3 hours. I got to move around. So I'm just going to go ahead and play another one of these I'm going to go ahead and play the same since it's already loaded. And I will holler at you guys later. And if those of you who sent emails on Cypher, I'll get to them in about an hour. Right now I need to check on the dogs, walk around the property and do shit. I've been cooped up in here a little too long. That was an awesome discussion. Really awesome discussion. Kind of got me thinking about Mormonism a little bit differently. I didn't realize they had tendrils into all these things. And there's a statement that I said in that video that may just become another video. I'm going to let you guys try to figure out what it was, but she said something that triggered me. And I responded. And then after I responded, I heard how it sounded. And I realized, holy shit, I'm always talking about these people here. But what if what I said is true? And these people are just the front. Wow, man, the more I think about it, talking to people always gives me these aha moments. I'm going to let you guys figure that one out. Anyway, love you guys.